Chapter 681. Chapter 681. It's you. You hid yourself very well. Chapter 681. It's you. You hid yourself very well. Why do you insist on targeting senior brother Chen Chen? Asked the man with the large shield. Why? Jiang Hao chuckled. Because it amuses me. The group of people were speechless. Don't you think you're taking this too far? Why are you targeting us? We didn't do anything to offend you, someone said. Jiang Hao couldn't help but laugh. He pointed to the disciples who had fainted. What about them? Did they offend you? Why were you planning to kill them? It's their good fortune to pave the way for senior Chen Chen's path. Not everyone has that privilege, someone said. I see. Such an honor, indeed, said Jiang Hao. Just when they thought Jiang Hao understood, they suddenly saw a beam of moonlight. Whoosh! The person who had just spoken had their head separated from their body. At that moment, Jiang Hao slowly lowered his sword. Well, I've been studying the heavenly blade lately. It's your supreme honor to be my test subject. Jiang Hao looked at the others. You all agree with me, right? The crowd looked at each other. They were afraid to speak. Do you not agree with me? Jiang Hao waved his sword again. Whoosh! Another person's head was severed from their body. The blood was incinerated. Chen Chen didn't have a chance to absorb it. I agree, someone said. Jiang Hao smiled. That's more like it. Friend, why argue with us here? The Heavenly Note sect is under attack. Many are being called to defend it. There are plenty of opportunities outside for someone of your cultivation realm. The man in the Foundation establishment realm tried to persuade him. Why not go out of the sect and take a look? Jiang Hao's heart skipped a beat. Someone is attacking the Heavenly Note sect. I can't stay here for long. If a fight breaks out, it will create problems at the Spirit Herb Garden. Jiang Hao was about to make his move. However, someone acted before him. At that moment, Chen Chen stood up in the midst of the blood. He was surrounded by countless rivers of blood. In an instant, these rivers of blood surged and pierced through the black-robed figures. The black-robed people turned to look at Chen Chen in surprise. One of them shouted, "Senior, you must succeed." The man in the Foundation establishment realm whispered, I truly wanted to join you, Senior, in founding a sect. Chen Chen looked at them with emotion. He felt sad to do this. He wanted to let go of the blood rivers in his hands. Let's do it, said the Foundation establishment realm cultivator. We've come so far, we can't give up now. We can't fail. Chen Chen looked at the others. In the end, his face darkened. I'm sorry. Then, he started to extract the blood from the disciples. This left a bloodstone monument in front of him. It bore many names. Jie Sheng from the Candlelight Pill Pavilion and Dong Liu from the Ice Moon Valley were two names visible. Dozens of names were engraved on the monument. Although I can't take you with me to create a sect, I will succeed and leave your names to be remembered for eternity. These people watched as their blood was absorbed by Chen Chen. They dedicated themselves to this great cause without any resentment. Jiang Hao observed from a distance as he saw Chen Chen absorb the blood and merge it with other blood. The names continued to appear. When all the black-robed people fell, the process of blood fusion neared its end. However, it was still missing something. At that moment, Chen Chen looked at Jiang Hao. Do we have a grudge against? Perhaps, Jiang Hao said casually. Chen Chen lowered his head. Actually, I'm lacking one more blood vow. Do you want me to help you? Jiang Hao asked. Chen Chen shook his head. No, because you're not my blood vow. Then, is it going to fail? Jiang Hao asked. No, it can't fail. Chen Chen shook his head. May I know who you really are? For you to enter the Heavenly Note sect so openly, you must not be your true self. Jiang Hao looked at the person in front of him and smiled. He activated the Heavenly Cauldron and also the Mountain Sea Seal. Jiang Hao put down the fan, and his appearance changed. Senior brother Chen Chen, it's been too long, Jiang Hao said softly. He looked calm and indifferent. Chen Chen was momentarily stunned, but then he felt relieved. It's you. You hid yourself so well. Do you think I am part of the Blood Wish path? Jiang Hao asked. He hadn't received an answer before, but now he could ask. You knew why I was looking for you back then? Chen Chen was surprised. Jiang Hao nodded. Yes. That is why I came to find you. I see, Chen Chen said. A change of mind can make a world of difference. Then, he shook his head. Junior brother, you are not part of the Blood Wish path. Why? Jiang Hao asked curiously. Profound practitioners of the Blood Wish path are impossible to discern, but you are indeed not one who practices Blood Wish path. It's just my intuition. Is there anything else you want to say, senior? The heavenly sword appeared in Jiang Hao's hand. From the moment he restored his appearance, he had decided that he would kill this person. Just one last reminder. Within the sect, there are people paying attention to the Blood Wish path, and you may have caught their eye, Chen Chen said as a warning. I know. They're the Saint Bandits, said Jiang Hao. Chen Chen was surprised, but he didn't say anything. He looked at the blood around him. I'm only one person away from success. I cannot fail, so. Blood started to ooze from Chen Chen's body. Since they trusted me this much, how can I let them down? I promised to leave their names to be remembered for eternity, and I am the best practitioner of the Blood Wish path here. Jiang Hao was ready to take action. He noticed that Chen Chen's vitality was dissipating. However, the blood had completely merged together, and the earth was flowing with it. In this state, it seemed as though Chen Chen had gained some sort of enlightenment. He began inscribing characters on a bloodstone monument created from the merged blood. The faster he wrote, the more blood he consumed, and the thicker the aura of death became. Jiang Hao watched without intervening. After a long time, Chen Chen made the final stroke, and he laughed. It's done. It's really possible. I've been preparing for hundreds of years for this. I prepared for this moment when I first joined the Heavenly Note sect. Finally, I've accomplished it. Congratulations, senior, Jiang Hao said as he looked at Chen Chen. His vitality was about to fade away. Chen Chen looked at the stone monument and wrote down his name. Chen Chen of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion. He then looked at Jiang Hao. This is the best ending for me. Even if I were to live, I wouldn't escape very far. The Heavenly Note sect may lack in other aspects, but it doesn't fall short in bearing grudges. They would still find ways to kill me even if I flee to another sect since I've killed so many of the sect's disciples. Chapter 682, Chapter 682, Forced to leave the sect. Chapter 682, Forced to leave the sect. Jiang Hao was well aware of the grudge against the Heavenly Note sect. He had waited in front of other sects for many years to find traitors. Someone like Chen Chen, even if he hid in the Immortal sect, the sect would probably find a way to send someone in to kill him. They would find him even if it meant using the Heavenly Essence Soul modeling mirror. There was no escape for him. With such a divine artifact, there was nowhere to hide. So, what was the point? Junior brother, you wouldn't understand. Creating a new alchemical path is an extraordinary achievement. Chen Chen smiled. You've come to the wrong sect, then, Jiang Hao said. Chen Chen could escape to another sect, and he didn't intend to die there. At least he wouldn't be relentlessly pursued. No other sect can compare to the Heavenly Note sect. Besides, they don't have the blood pool. At the final moment, the fusion of the blood pool is necessary to determine my path. If I have time and enough blood, I will merge the power within the blood pool. Then, my strength will skyrocket. Maybe I can try to resist, escape from here, go to a distant place, live a few years of the life I've always wanted, and try my own alchemical path. At the very least, I want my path to be known throughout the world. But I know you won't let me do that, junior brother, said Chen Chen. He didn't have enough blood. It just happened that Jiang Hao had killed 2 people and burned their fresh blood. But that was how he had managed to survive until the end. Otherwise, the person in front of him would have already taken action. Jiang Hao fell silent for a moment. Was there an attack on the Heavenly Note sect because of you? Yes, Chen Chen said. I provided information about the vulnerabilities within the Heavenly Note sect to the Heavenly Saint sect and the Blood Shadow sect, as well as the Sunset Immortal sect. They might take action, or at least, they can contain the sect. This will give me more time. Jiang Hao lowered his head. The Heavenly Saint sect and the Sunset Immortal sect both had a beef with him. If the sect were to lose, it would be disastrous for him, especially during these past few days when those who had gone to the Black Heaven sect hadn't returned yet. The sect was very vulnerable right now. Senior brother, you are truly farsighted, Jiang Hao said. What are your plans for this alchemical path? I want to leave it to a few selected individuals from the Candlelight Pill Pavilion, Chen Chen said. Do you have spirit stones with you? Jiang Hao asked. I have some alchemical pills and herbs in my residence, which require certain techniques to enter, said Elon Knen. Good. Jiang Hao nodded. He asked for the list of names. Chen Chen gave it to him and disappeared completely. He felt some relief as well as regret. For the sake of safety, Jiang Hao unleashed his power and erased his tracks. Even the stone tablet was incinerated, but he remembered its contents. He also re-engraved the stone tablet and added the names and a brief explanation about their origins. This way, there will be no mistakes. After ensuring there were no hidden threats, Jiang Hao approached Qi Yang and the others. He looked at their storage treasures and then disappeared from the spot. These people were only at the Foundation Establishment realm and very few spirit stones. It was better to check Chen Chen's residence to get more spirit stones. If he got them, he would help with the tasks. If not, so be it. When Jiang Hao reappeared, he was in a wooden house. It was now the second day. The spirit beast was not in the courtyard, and Jiang Hao noticed that the peach tree had blossomed. After watering the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, he made his way to the spirit herb garden. When he arrived, he saw disciples from the Law Enforcement Hall. All cultivators above the Golden Core realm are to proceed outside the sect to provide support. Jiang Hao had just arrived. The disciples saw him and sent some communication talismans flying toward him. Junior brother, you now have temporary permission to go outside. The sect is in dire need of your assistance during this crisis. Jiang Hao received the talisman. It was hard for him to believe that the sect had reached such a state. However, the fact that it hadn't been breached yet indicated that the attack wasn't as fierce as he had imagined. Understood. He couldn't refuse, but he managed to stall for some time. He told them he needed to prepare some things. When he returned to his residence, he left behind a second teleportation formation. Since the previous one had been used, he wouldn't be able to return if he encountered any danger today. After taking care of these matters, he went outside the sect and began gathering with other disciples of the sect. In cases like these, those with a high cultivation realm automatically assume leadership roles. Jiang Hao, at the middle stage of the Golden Core middle realm, was among quite a few juniors. As he watched people gathering, Jiang Hao couldn't help but sigh at how well Chen Chen had chosen his timing. There were hardly any people paying attention to other matters at the moment. However, he had orchestrated this. It was indeed remarkable. It was a crazy idea but was done very meticulously. It was a pity that his opponent had underestimated one aspect. Otherwise, the plan might have actually succeeded. Which branch are you from? Asked a primordial spirit realm cultivator. I'm Jiang Hao from the Cliff of Broken Hearts, said Jiang Hao. Middle stage of the Golden Core realm? You'll team up with junior brother Yu and others to investigate the surrounding areas, said the primordial spirit realm senior. Jiang Hao made his way to junior brother Yu's team. The team was led by a cultivator at the late stage of the Golden Core realm. It was a group of 5 people, with 3 men and 2 women. Juniors, follow me, Yu Dehong said politely. Jiang Hao and the others nodded in agreement. Their senior appeared to be around 28 years old, and he had a solid cultivation in the late stage of the Golden Core realm. He had experienced life and death situations and was a reliable leader. Remember, if you encounter any issues, escape and wait to regroup, said Yu Dehong kindly. We are currently on patrol. If we see anyone being hostile, it means the attackers plan an ambush. There is no need to stay and die there. Just regroup and report your findings. If you discover anything, leave immediately and avoid stirring up trouble. Senior brother, Are you being too lenient? A young man asked. If it's possible, we could totally stay and take them down to gather more information. Indeed, as cultivators, we should fight, said a short-haired woman. Jiang Hao looked at them. They were all in the Golden Core realm, and their auras were quite powerful. It meant that they had good talent. They also possessed remarkable magical treasures, and their status and positions were quite high in the sect. Yu Dehong felt somewhat embarrassed. Juniors, you have some good insights, but we are ultimately on patrol. Our main duty is to do our job properly, rather than get caught in the fray. The other two didn't say much, but their disdain was evident. Jiang Hao looked at the other cultivator, who was a woman. She was in the early stage of the Golden Core realm. She looked nervous and kept glancing at the other seniors beside her. Jiang Hao sighed quietly. He realized that this team was quite disorganized. It was no wonder they were only given patrol duties. However, even on patrol, he was worried about leaving the sect. After all, quite a few people were keeping an eye on him, and they could show up at any moment. But the distant explosion of power distracted him. In front of the sect, powerful cultivators constantly engaged in battle. The storm caused by the erupting power never seemed to cease. This was the main battlefield between the two sides. Let's hope nothing dangerous happens, Jiang Hao thought to himself. Chapter 683, Chapter 683, Forced to take action. Chapter 683, Forced to take action. On the first day of their patrol, there were no problems. The absence of disciples from the Heavenly Joy Pavilion in their group put Jiang Hao at ease. Otherwise, he would need to remain vigilant at all times, which was quite troublesome. However, it wouldn't take long for others to find out that he was outside the sect. Someone was bound to come looking for him. The influence left behind by senior brother Chen Chen was even greater than he had expected. He had thought that killing senior brother Chen Chen would resolve the issues, but it turned out that killing him would have been in vain. I can take the first watch, Jiang Hao said. The others had no objections. So, Jiang Hao moved to a more remote location, while the rest of the team meditated in hiding. They didn't light a fire to avoid being detected. Suddenly, a light appeared. It emanated from the short-haired woman. Jiang Hao frowned because this place was outside the sect. The light could compromise their location. Once someone notices it, they might approach their group. Jiang Hao walked to her, and Yu Dehong followed suit. Junior sister, may I ask why there is such a conspicuous light here? Yu Dehong asked. The woman was from the Ice Moon Valley, and she was fairly young. It's my magical treasure. It helps me enter a state of meditation and enhances my cultivation, Shimen Ling said. Is that the cleansing dust bell? I've heard that it can indeed enhance your cultivation, but you should be able to conceal the light. Have you tried that? After all, the light is too conspicuous. If someone notices it, they might approach us and put us at risk. It would also disturb your meditation, said Yu Dehong kindly. Jiang Hao could tell that the main purpose of this treasure was the emitted light, which also had functions like warding off insects and dust, as well as creating a pleasant fragrance. Its effect on meditation was minimal. Shimen Ling glanced at Yu Dehong. With a reluctant nod, she put the magical treasure away. Jiang Hao stepped back and returned to his original position to keep watch. During the midnight shift, Yu Dehong took over the watch. Senior brother. Thank you, junior brother, you've worked hard. Yu Dehong felt helpless. I hope you don't overthink this, junior brother. We are all fellow sect members, and it's normal to have differences due to our different backgrounds. I understand, and I admire you for being so patient, senior brother, Jiang Hao said politely. He could tell that this senior had some unique abilities. We may have to be on this mission for several more days, so be careful, junior brother, Yu Dehong said to him. Jiang Hao nodded. After that, he returned to the group. As soon as he arrived, he saw Shimen Ling take out a sachet. While the fragrance was faint, it was still distinctive. Jiang Hao glanced at Yu Dehong. He had noticed it too. This time, Yu Dehong didn't say anything but set up a barrier to prevent the scent from spreading, which resolved the issue. Jiang Hao had to admit that if someone else led this team, it might have already led to conflicts. It wasn't easy to manage people in such circumstances. If Yu Dahong had been prideful with a powerful technique, it would have been an entirely different story. The night went by peacefully. During this time, Jiang Hao had gathered some information about his companions. Yu Dahong was from the Flowing Waterfall. Shimen Ling was from the Ice Moon Valley. Lu Wen was from the Thunder Fire Peak. Ning Shuang was from the Misty Cloud Peak. Let's go. This time, we will be investigating the western area. It's difficult to communicate with other sect members in this area, so we must be very careful, Yu Dahong said. Jiang Hao saw that Shimen Ling and Lu Wen seemed somewhat disdainful of this senior's approach. If anything happens, it'll be because of these two. Jiang Hao didn't underestimate Ning Shuang either. She appeared obedient and meek, but no one knew what she might be thinking. Last night, he had appraised Yu Dahong and found no issues with him. He was a decent senior. He hadn't appraised the other three. He wanted to save his ability in case they ran into some other danger. The daily appraisal ability always came in handy, so he couldn't waste it. After waiting for some time, Jiang Hao frowned. He waited a bit longer. Senior brother Yu. Yu Dahong's heart sank as he looked at Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao pointed to the left. After a careful scan, Yu Dahong did indeed sense something. He then looked at Jiang Hao in surprise. Jiang Hao had sensed it even earlier than he had. Soon after, a figure entered their line of sight. Peak of Foundation Establishment Realm? Lu Wen exclaimed. It appeared that the person was middle-aged, with torn clothes and some injuries. It seemed like they had fled to this location. We can capture this person and see if they have any information, Shimen Ling said. Wait. This person is a bit unusual. You should know that this route is close to the sect, so why would anyone take this path? Why would they do it in such a noticeable way? There's a possibility that he's leading us into a trap. We should observe first. Be cautious and suppress your auras, Yu Dahong said. Jiang Hao nodded in agreement. He could see that the person seemed to be at the peak of the Foundation Establishment Realm but was really at the late stage of the Golden Core Realm. What do you all think? Lu Wen looked at Jiang Hao and Ning Shuang. I think senior brother Yu's assessment is correct. This person must be concealing their true cultivation realm, Jiang Hao said. Ning Shuang looked around. I agree. Let's listen to senior brother Yu. Since Jiang Hao and Ning Shuang both agreed with senior brother Yu's suggestion, the other two had no choice. In the afternoon, Jiang Hao and the others kept their eyes on the stranger. The person leaned against a rock. When he saw no one around, he removed his defensive robe and began inspecting his injuries. He even set his magical treasures aside. Lu Wen and Shimen Ling didn't hesitate. Even if the person had concealed their cultivation realm, they believed that at such a close range, they could successfully ambush him. Yu Dahong tried to intervene, but it was too late. Jiang Hao had a bad feeling about this. Lu Wen and Shimen Ling's swords quickly closed in on the Foundation Establishment cultivator's back. Just as they thought they were about to succeed, the person turned around and smiled. I finally see you. At the same time, his aura rapidly ascended to the late stage of the Golden Core Realm. Late stage. The two attackers tried to retreat, but it was too late. Even Yu Dahong was astonished. Juma Brotner Jlang and Juma Sister Ning, UB0TN run and nide. I'll try my best to stop him. If I can't handle it, I'll try to catch up with you later, said Yu Dahong and rushed forward to provide support. With one cultivator at the late stage of the Golden Core Realm and two at the middle stage, they should have been able to handle one opponent at the late stage, but Jiang Hao looked into the distance. Just as he had expected, it was an ambush. Other people were coming to assist the enemy. Should they flee or not? The two at the middle stage of the Golden Core Realm weren't worth saving, but he felt that senior brother Yu was decent. With a sigh, Jiang Hao gave up on escaping. He took a step forward. He used the 1,000 demonic tones technique. At that moment, the Golden Core cultivator's palm struck Lu Wen and Shimen Ling. Boom! A powerful force struck them and injured them severely. Fortunately, at the critical moment, Yu Dahong appeared to engage in the fight. When he saw an opening, he launched a lethal attack. As long as he came into contact with the opponent's defense, he could quickly close in for direct combat. However, the opponent seemed to have seen through his plan and dispersed his defense. He narrowly avoided the attack. Yi Dahong thought that this opponent was highly skilled and had great courage. It was impressive that this person had dared to disperse their defenses. But just as the opponent felt that he could win, he heard a voice devoid of emotion. Demonic sound / boom. The demon sound surged, and then, a long sword appeared near the golden core cultivator's neck. It moved with the speed of thunder and severed his neck. Swish. It was quick, precise, and ruthless. Yu Dahong and the others watched as the enemy's head separated from his body, and Jiang Hao's figure came into view. He held the long sword and appeared aloof. The scene sent shivers down their spines. Jiang Hao ignored the golden core opponent and turned to look at them. Go quickly. Maybe you can still make it. It was too late now. Their reinforcements were arriving. After taking their storage treasure, Jiang Hao immediately left. Yu Dahong also rushed ahead with his team. Jiang Hao had sensed the danger faster than any of them. So, if he said there was more danger, no one disputed it. However, the sword strike just now was so stunning that it remained etched in their minds for a long time. The person before them seemed even more remarkable than they had anticipated. Chapter 684, Chapter 684, Meeting the Master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Chapter 684, Meeting the Master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. This way, Jiang Hao said as he led the way. Yu Dahong and the others followed him. Jiang Hao was the most perceptive, so they had to let him lead. However, the constant change of direction made it difficult for those behind him, especially the injured Shimen Ling and Lu Wen. Ning Shuang, at the early stage of the Golden Core realm, also struggled to keep up. Fortunately, Yu Dahong helped her, or she would have fallen behind. Jiang Hao was unusually fast for someone in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. Many people could use the 1000 demonic tone to a certain extent, but no one else could use it like this. They never thought that the technique could be this powerful. Jiang Hao didn't slow down. He continued to move quickly and changed directions constantly. Why are we taking such a roundabout way? Shimen Ling asked. If we don't, they'll catch up, Jiang Hao said. But we haven't found anything. Are you just trying to drag this out because of your newfound fame? Shimen Ling asked coldly. She wasn't the only one thinking this way. I also checked. There's no need to take such a roundabout way. We can return to the sect. Are you doing this to show off? I remember you used to boast about your accomplishments. Is this your way of achieving them? Said Lu Wen. Jiang Hao glanced at them but did not say anything. Got nothing to say? Shimen Ling said. If that's the case, you might as well go on your own. We can find our own way back. Then, we'll split up, Yu Dahong said. Jiang Hao didn't stop for even a moment and continued moving forward. There were indeed stronger pursuers behind them, and he needed to lead his group to safety. It was a bit complicated but not impossible since the pursuers had not detected their presence yet. Shimen Ling and Lu Wen, who were left behind, were somewhat worried, but they relaxed when they didn't run into trouble. It looks like there aren't any problems, Shimen Ling said. We can go back. We'll leave immediately when they arrive, Lu Wen said. As they were about to leave on their flying swords, some figures suddenly appeared in the vicinity. I thought it was a trap, but it seems like it's not, an elderly man said. Just in time. We can't use these two to find others. The power of the peak of the Golden Core realm and the early stage of the primordial spirit realm oppressed the two. In the face of these formidable individuals, Lu Wen and Shimen Ling trembled in fear. They couldn't even move. Please. We're just. Someone slapped Shimen Ling and sent her flying. Did I ask you to speak yet? The two were silenced. They were overwhelmed by fear. Meanwhile, Jiang Hao suddenly stopped. He sighed. Senior brother Yu, you'll have to fend for yourself. Yu Dahong was stunned. Then, he understood what Jiang Hao meant. Of course, junior brother, you've done your best. If you can escape, please do. He said with a smile. Jiang Hao lowered his head. He hadn't expected that leaving the two behind would compromise their location. Now, the range of his abilities was not sufficient to take everyone with him. It wasn't long before many people appeared in the vicinity. There were 2 people at the late stage and peak of the Golden Core realm, and 2 others at the early and middle stage of the Primordial Spirit realm. Facing these powerful individuals, Yu Dehong had no intention of fighting. He was utterly powerless. Jiang Hao lowered his head and breathed a sigh of relief. It appeared they were weaker than he had anticipated, which made the situation much more manageable. However, it seemed that these people did not recognize him, so his journey outside was not as dangerous as he had initially thought. At least, they were not constantly watching him closely. "These 2 have told us everything. You have to help us enter the Heavenly Note sect," said the elderly man as he pushed Lu Wen and Shimen Ling forward. They were covered in injuries, and they looked helpless. "The sect is not easy to enter. Senior, I hope you understand," Yu Dehong said respectfully. "It's fine. You can enter with your identity tokens. They explained it very clearly to us." The man pointed to Lu Wen and Shimen Ling. Yu Dehong sighed. Jiang Hao continued to sense his surroundings and found everything to be fine. He intended to do something about this situation. However, when he was about to act, his eyes narrowed. He immediately retracted all his powers and became alert. An aura much stronger and terrifying than his own was approaching. In just a few breaths, he felt a gaze on him. The gaze fell on him like the scorching rays of the sun. When he looked up, he was stunned. Behind the Primordial Spirit Realm cultivators was a man who had appeared without anyone noticing. He was middle-aged and wore a white and blue robe. He had deep eyes. He seemed somewhat melancholic. He was the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. This was a person Jiang Hao had wanted to avoid at all costs. "What are you looking at?" the elderly man asked Jiang Hao. The others looked back as well and were horrified. The people who turned back instantly exploded into pieces. There was no exception. When only half the number of people remained, they trembled in fear, and no one dared to look back. "When did this place become a gathering place for the Blood Shadow sect?" said a deep voice. Boom, boom, boom. Everyone who had surrounded Jiang Hao's group exploded into pieces, including Lu Wen and Shimen Ling. Each explosion sent a shockwave through Jiang Hao's heart, but he remained calm. Once the people around him were all dead, Jiang Hao said respectfully, "Greetings, Senior." Yu Dehong and Ning Shuang also regained their senses and bowed. They had seen this person before. The master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion approached Jiang Hao slowly. Jiang Hao had already considered his options. Once this person made a move, he would attempt to escape. With the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl in his possession, he should be able to prevent 9 Nether from attacking him. As for what kind of changes the 9 Nether would bring, that was no longer something he needed to consider. However, in the span of a breath, Jiang Hao saw the person appear in front of him. "Are you afraid of me?" asked the deep, terrifying voice. "Senior, you must be joking," Jiang Hao said. "Why do you think I showed up here?" asked the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Jiang Hao kept a cautious eye on the person in front of him. "Senior, I assume you are here to support the sect. Do you think I'll kill you?" asked the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Jiang Hao's heart skipped a beat, but he dared not show too much emotion. He shook his head. "Of course not, Senior. No need to bow to me," said the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion as he looked at Jiang Hao. At that moment, an invisible force began to lift Jiang Hao's hand. Jiang Hao did not accept this gesture of respect. "As a senior of the sect, it's only appropriate for me to pay my respects," Jiang Hao said. "You should be more confident in yourself," said the pavilion master calmly. "You are highly regarded by many, and your death would greatly affect me." With that, the pavilion master walked toward the battlefield of the sect. Chapter 685, Chapter 685, The Enemies Have Arrived. Chapter 685, The Enemies Have Arrived. Jiang Hao let out a sigh of relief only after the master of Heavenly Joy Pavilion had completely disappeared from their sight. Meeting him here was something he had never expected. If he had made a move, his chances of survival would have been slim. Any method could have backfired, no matter how well prepared it was. The strength of that person was beyond his understanding. When he looked over to the side, he noticed that senior brother Yu Dehong and junior sister Ning Shuang had both fainted at some point. It must have been because of the pavilion master. He surveyed the area and found 2 storage treasures, which counted as a gain. After stowing the items, he woke his 2 fellow disciples up. They were somewhat disoriented. They thought they were in danger but soon realized that a branch master had appeared to save them. They looked around but didn't see anyone else. They didn't know how they had fainted. When they saw the pavilion master walking over to Jiang Hao, they understood that some things were better left unknown. "Senior brother, what should we do now?" Jiang Hao asked. "Let's go back," Yu Dehong said. "We need to report the situation." He hesitated and asked, "What do you think we should say about you?" He was asking Jiang Hao if he wanted his actions to be known. "Just report the truth, senior brother," Jiang Hao said. He had done everything within the scope of his abilities. Even if it was a little exaggerated, it wouldn't matter. This way, he could let others in the same realm know that he was not to be trifled with. For those who were stronger, he would avoid provoking them, and if there were any problems, his true abilities would be sufficient to deal with them. He would feel safer that way. With his cultivation at the middle stage of the Golden Core realm, it was unlikely that he would provoke someone he couldn't handle. The master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion was an exception. "Very well. Let's go back." Yu Dehong breathed a sigh of relief. This way, they wouldn't have to worry about anything. Ning Shuang didn't voice any objections and followed the 2 of them. In no time, they returned to the command center of the sect. Yu Dehong went in to make his report, while Jiang Hao and Ning Shuang waited outside. "Senior brother, you're amazing. You might have achieved some merits this time," Ning Shuang said. Jiang Hao nodded and told her he just got lucky. "How much longer will this battle last?" Ning Shuang asked in concern. Given that even the Golden Core realm cultivators were asked to assist, the entire matter didn't bode well. Jiang Hao just shook his head. He didn't know, but with the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion here, they might have a change. Indeed, the outermost battle in the afternoon began to tilt in their favor. The Heavenly Note sect started to suppress the enemy. What was happening inside was unknown to Jiang Hao, as the power fluctuations there were too strong for him to approach. Their mission began to change. They appeared to be preparing to launch a counterattack. They also added 2 more people to the team. The 2 newcomers were both at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. They were a little injured. It seemed that they had also been attacked. "I'm Qian Yu from the 100 Bones Forest. Greetings, seniors. And I'm Qian Shi from the 100 Bones Forest. It's an honor to make your acquaintance, seniors." Jiang Hao and Ning Shuang also introduced themselves. After that, they shared some information about their origins. These 2 were the only survivors from their previous team, which meant they were strong enough to have survived on the battlefield. The 2 sisters looked somewhat alike. They might have been siblings. The next day, the 5 of them set off once again. Jiang Hao had appraised Ning Shuang the night before and found out that she was pretending to be clueless while secretly holding on to a magic treasure. She intended to let others fight while ensuring her own safety. She would only use her magic treasure in a desperate situation. At other times, she would ask others for help and protection. Jiang Hao wasn't surprised by this. If she were truly that naive, it would be troublesome. It meant that she was smart and wouldn't just drag them down. As for the other 2, he would have to wait and see. Senior brother Yu Dehong instructed them to follow his orders. However, if a fight broke out, he emphasized that they should listen to Jiang Hao. This took the 2 sisters by surprise, but they nodded in agreement. They were better than the previous 2 teammates. "I heard that senior brother and senior sister were surrounded by some primordial spirit and golden core cultivators?" Qian Yu asked curiously. "Yes." Ning Shuang nodded. "How did you manage to escape?" Qian Yu asked again. "We didn't manage to escape. We were saved by a branch master," Ning Shuang said. "But the seniors were amazing. We managed to run for a long time before we were caught. Haha, it was just good luck." Otherwise, we would have died already. Yu Dehong laughed and then changed the topic. So, what happened to you two? Your team had 10 people and you are the only survivors. It must have been difficult for you. The two women's faces darkened. It was because we had a traitor in our team. Most of the disciples were unable to return. If it weren't for that traitor, we wouldn't have ended up like this. Their voices were filled with anger and hatred. Yu Dehong decided not to press them further about it. Jiang Hao observed the two women carefully. The others were talking and joking along the way. In the evening, they finally approached the battlefield, which meant they were likely to encounter more enemies. It's difficult to go back from here. We need to be cautious, Yu Dehong said. That's true. It's very difficult to return from here. It is inevitable to avoid an attack in this area, said Chen Yu. Jiang Hao lowered his head and sighed. He then glanced at Ning Shuang. He was trying to guess what she was thinking. There's someone ahead, said Chen Shu, who was usually very quiet. What? Yu Dehong was startled. Just as he was about to walk ahead and check, Jiang Hao grabbed his shoulder. When he turned around and saw Jiang Hao, his heart sank. It meant that Chen Shu was lying. Jiang Hao's action surprised Chen Yu and Chen Shu. Senior brother Jiang, what's the matter? Asked Chen Yu. May I ask you a question, junior sister? Jiang Hao looked at the two women. Of course, senior brother, please ask, Chen Yu said politely. Let's say there was a day when your cultivation was hindered and advancing became difficult, and you needed a significant number of pills and spirit stones to advance further. If someone found you and said that if you agreed to give them your location, they would provide 3 times the amount of spirit stones and pills, along with profound techniques and magical treasures, would you agree? Jiang Hao asked solemnly. Chen Yu was taken aback. The past is better left unspoken. I'm afraid I must insist that you do look back on it, said Jiang Hao. Then, I have a question for you too, senior brother, Chen Yu said. Ask away, said Jiang Hao. If, let's say, the same thing happened to you, and you were offered the same deal, would you agree to it? Jiang Hao lowered his head. He knew that enemies had arrived. Chapter 686, Chapter 686. Mining is very important. Chapter 686. Mining is very important. Yu Dehong sighed inwardly when he heard Chen Yu's words. So, these people were the traitors. Most of the team from before had perished, leaving only these two alive. And now, it was their turn. The path of immortality was fraught with challenges, resources were scarce, and competition was inevitable. It was up to the individual to decide how to become stronger. It seemed that his methods were inferior to theirs. Are they already here then? Jiang Hao asked. Senior brother Jiang, you've already figured it out. There's no need to ask further. The rumors were true. I must say your skills are exceptional, said Chen. Ning Shuang took a step back. Jiang Hao noticed it but didn't pay much attention. He thought she would wait for the right moment to flee. Perhaps it was because she hadn't fled in the earlier encounter, and the situation had worsened. She was more careful this time. Sure enough, a magical treasure emanated, and Ning Shuang's presence faded. By the time someone noticed, it was too late. Chen Yu noticed it as Ning Shuang disappeared. She was shocked. How could the seemingly frail woman vanish without a trace? If only she had been more observant, Ning Shuang wouldn't have slipped away unnoticed. As it turned out, she had been pretending to be naive and frail. She just used others and didn't care if others were in danger. We're done for, Chen Yu said in despair. Her betrayal would be exposed to the sect now because one of the people had escaped. She intended to leave the sect and never return. Jiang Hao watched and then focused on his aura. He closed his eyes and pretended to faint. Yu Dehong was astonished and had intended to help him, but he fell to the ground as well. Thud. Yu Dehong fell, but Jiang Hao, on the other hand, stopped halfway and then stood up again. Chen Yu and Chen Shu were shocked. What on earth was happening? Why was he acting so strangely? Jiang Hao remained calm and looked at the approaching figures. There were 3 people. Among them, 2 were in the early stage and 1 was in the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm. 3 people at the primordial spirit realm to capture a golden core realm cultivator like me? Seriously, said Jiang Hao. Somebody paid a high price for your life. We didn't really want to come. After all, this place is in the middle of a battle and extremely dangerous for us. But someone offered too much for your death, the middle-aged man in charge said. Spirit stones? Jiang Hao asked. It was likely related to the Sunset Immortal sect. He hadn't expected that their long-standing enmity would be rekindled. Can you tell me who paid you? I deserve to know if I'm going to die anyway, said Jiang Hao. The son of Elder Gui of the Sunset Immortal sect, Gui Yun, the middle-aged man said. Jiang Hao had thought they would refuse to reveal the name, but he didn't expect the information to be so easily given. Jiang Hao appraised the man to see if he was speaking the truth. Indeed, he was. In that case, let's not waste any more time. After all, this place isn't very safe, Jiang Hao said. Politely. You're really looking out for, the middle-aged man said with a smirk, but he found that his vision was already blurring. Then, he fell to the ground. He was dead before he could even complete his words. The sudden turn of events left everyone stunned, especially Qian Yu and Qian Shi. It was almost unbelievable. However, the 2 early-stage primordial spirit realm cultivators reacted quickly. One attempted to attack while the other tried to escape. Unfortunately, the sword light swept by, and moonlight shone brightly. Their figures disappeared like wisps of smoke. Jiang Hao collected the 3 storage treasures and turned to look at the 2 juniors. Senior brother, this is all a misunderstanding, Qian Yu said in fear. She couldn't have dreamed that this Golden Core Realm senior could take down primordial spirit realm cultivators in a single blow. How had they encountered such a horrifying person? Jiang Hao nodded in understanding. Then, he swung his sword, and their world was enveloped by the blade's light. After dealing with the bodies, Jiang Hao looked at senior brother Yu Dehong, who was still unconscious. We can't continue traveling together. It will definitely become more dangerous. If I travel with others, I will surely be discovered, Jiang Hao muttered. With his current strength, he could escape. However, it would be a problem if other sect members were present. He didn't want to take any action at this moment. Since he had come out this time, he decided to continue staying here. However, he didn't know what kind of danger he might encounter. People from the Sunset Immortal sect had already arrived. The Heavenly Saint sect, the Fallen Immortal clan, Feng Hua, and Yin Wei might be around here too. It was undoubtedly very dangerous. He had no choice but to remain outside the sect. If he couldn't fight, they could always use the 1,000 miles teleportation talisman to escape and return to the sect. Hopefully, by that time, Golden Core Realm cultivators would no longer be needed. After leaving some subtle magic to awaken senior brother Yu Dehong, Jiang Hao vanished from the spot. He would head to either the Black Heaven sect or the Sunset Immortal sect to investigate the matter. He decided to find a mine and dig for ores. It was important for him right now. The enemies were not as important as digging for ores in the mine. After all, it was far from easy to make the enemy lose his trail completely. He would have to wait until he reached the Immortal Ascension platform to infiltrate the Sunset Immortal sect. For now, his focus was on finding the nearest cave with mines. Once he had determined the location of the nearest mine, Jiang Hao set off quickly. He didn't want to go to a regular mine, but rather a more profitable one. His first target was the mining site of the Black Heaven sect, which was fortunately not very far away from his sect. Otherwise, he would have to choose another location. The appearance of a Grand Earth Emperor might trigger the emergence of the Shenyuan sword. That would undoubtedly cause a huge commotion. He couldn't be close when that happened. It would be like jumping headfirst into the fire pit. It took Jiang Hao 7 days to reach the vicinity of the Black Heaven sect's mining site. It was a vast mining site that surrounded an entire mountain. Jiang Hao concealed his presence from others' perceptions. In this way, he could dig in peace for some time. He would only leave if he was chased away. There were strong individuals guarding the mining site, so Jiang Hao didn't dare to barge in. However, he used his divine ability to appraise one of the individuals. He then discreetly entered the mine by assuming the identity of one of the inner sect disciples. In the mine, Jiang Hao led a group of miners toward a mine shaft. His official role was to supervise others, but his real goal was to mine. He had some people with him to assist in overseeing the miners. The miners were mostly individuals who had committed crimes or were from the demonic sect. Using ordinary people for mining would be too slow, so these individuals were more suitable. Senior, have you thought about the matter I mentioned to you last time? One of the miners approached Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao was puzzled. What matter is it now? Chapter 687, Chapter 687, He must have been possessed. Chapter 687, He must have been possessed. The leader Jiang Hao replaced in this place was an ordinary disciple of the Black Heaven sect's inner sect. After reaching the Foundation establishment realm, his cultivation hadn't made much progress, so he came to the mining site in search of a job. He hoped to find opportunities here. He arrived and never left, and before he knew it, it had been several decades. During this time, he progressed from the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm to the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. He was only one step away from reaching the Golden Core realm. It wasn't because he had any extraordinary encounters. It was mainly because he was ruthless in dealing with matters and gained many benefits from the mining site. Jiang Hao took notice of this and decided to replace him. If someone was just an honest cultivator, he didn't want to have conflicts with them. He didn't want to disrupt their peaceful lives. Ruthless people usually brought a lot of trouble. Jiang Hao had considered that already. But little did he know that there was more to the situation. He glanced at the miners around him and found that the person standing next to him was ignored by the others. He realized that this person had always been like this, and he might have allowed him to do that. Upon closer observation, he found that the miner in front of him looked like he was in his 30s or 40s and was at the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. He felt like he had seen this person somewhere before. "How long have you been in the mine?" Jiang Hao suddenly asked. The miner QPPMPD Relanricht HP didn't NNDPRQTNND WHV thick KPNR. Suddenly asking that question. "About 14 years, he said truthfully. Jiang Hao nodded. The other person, however, seemed to be somewhat worried. "Senior, are you going to make a decision soon?" "Let's wait and see for now." "There is no rush," Jiang Hao casually said. Indeed, there was no rush. He didn't know how long he would have to stay here, so he might as well start mining first. The other things didn't concern him. For now, he just decided to stall for time. Seeing this, the miner didn't say anything more. "It seems like he still has some time to spare," Jiang Hao muttered to himself in silence. If the person appeared anxious, it meant that whatever decision he was asking about was indeed urgent. That would make things difficult for everyone. As they entered the mine, the people around them began mining. The treatment of the miners here was similar to that in the Heavenly Note sect. The only difference was that there was no lawless tower here to suppress people and lower their cultivation. So, there were many restrictions on miners at the Foundation establishment realm. Once they started working, it was easy to trigger them. If they could advance to the Golden Core realm, they could leave the mining site. However, Jiang Hao wasn't concerned about that. Mining began, and Jiang Hao watched from the side. He was in no hurry to participate. After waiting for a while and making sure that there were no issues around, he approached the ore and gently touched it. He felt that the ores here were harder than in the usual places. "Senior, at this rate, we might not be able to meet our quota for this month," said a Foundation establishment realm disciple who looked to be in his 30s. Jiang Hao turned to look at him. It seemed like he had reached a dead end and was trying to find some opportunities here. They locked eyes for a moment, and the junior quickly lowered his head and apologized. He then said he was sure that the senior might have his own arrangements. Jiang Hao felt that the person in front of him was particularly afraid of the person he had disguised himself as. "What arrangements do you think I have?" he asked. "Like letting these people work faster and catching up in half a month," the Foundation establishment realm disciple said. Jiang Hao observed the others carefully, and he realized that the miners' conditions were not good. Their physical health was below average, which was why their output was low. The miners trembled in fear. "Do you think that's fair?" Jiang Hao asked. "Senior brother, your decision will always be right," said the Foundation Establishment Realm disciple. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. He realized that this senior must have been a ruthless person before. "Let's just work as usual for now, and you keep an eye on them." Jiang Hao shook his head and took out his mining tools. Then, he started digging. Clang, clang. One rock after another fell to the ground. As the ores fell, white bubbles appeared. It had been a long time since he had last dug up ores. As he absorbed the bubbles, Jiang Hao felt some of his frustration and anxiety being washed away. Finally, he was on the right path in life. He didn't like scheming and fighting. He didn't like killing others. If circumstances hadn't forced him, there would be no blades in his hands. If he could keep mining like this, he wouldn't have any complaints. After that, he stopped thinking and began mining. The collision of the pickaxe with the rocks sounded very clear. His speed and strength were remarkable. The people around him looked on with fearful expressions. However, they quickly started mining and attempted to keep up with his pace. They knew that if they didn't keep up, there would be trouble. However, Jiang Hao was physically fit. How could the tired miners keep up with him? In just an hour, many of them had returned to their previous speed or were even slower than before. Everyone braced themselves for the torment they would suffer. They waited for the supervisor to stop digging. Noon arrived, and they thought it was time. However, the supervisor continued digging. They thought he would have stopped by now, but he didn't. In the evening, it was time to eat, and the supervisor finally stopped. But he only said one thing and resumed mining. "Everyone, have your meal and rest, then continue." The supervisor didn't eat. He continued mining. After dinner, as they listened to the supervisor's sounds of digging, they felt increasingly uneasy. It had been a whole day. What torment would they have to endure later? At night, the mining site was about to close. Reluctantly, Jiang Hao put away his tools. Today's harvest was good. He had obtained 2 blue bubbles. The Black Heaven sect indeed had remarkable resources. "Work is done for today. We'll continue tomorrow," Jiang Hao said as he looked at everyone. The miners all lowered their heads and dared not look him in the eye. They had waited to be punished, but 5 days had passed like that. They realized that the supervisor had done nothing other than mining, and he even reminded them to take breaks while he continued to work. Was this really the same supervisor? He must have been possessed by something. Chapter 688, Chapter 688, The Light of the Righteous Path. Chapter 688, The Light of the Righteous Path. For 5 consecutive days, mining proceeded as usual. Jiang Hao was surprised. He had a 5-day concealment talisman, but he had only used it for 3 days. He had been betting that they wouldn't come looking for him for 3 days. It seemed to be the case that both the Heavenly Saint sect and the others didn't put in much effort to find him. It made sense when he thought about it. A golden core realm cultivator wasn't worth their full attention. After the 6th day, Jiang Hao used the concealment talisman again. This time, he used it for 5 days. This meant he could mine in peace for another 5 days, which was good. He had made good progress. He had obtained 13 blue bubbles. If he continued like this, he would be able to advance in a little over a month. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to continue mining until the sect stopped the fighting and he could return. He hoped the fighting would last longer. Once the fighting ceased, the sect would look for him. The law enforcement hall was efficient, and as a person on their suspect list, he would be found and taken back sooner or later. He continued mining until early August. Jiang Hao noticed that the people around him were looking at him differently. They looked at him in shock and disbelief. He didn't pay much attention to it. What others thought of him was none of his concern, as long as they didn't suspect his identity. But others didn't think the same way. A female miner couldn't help but steal glances at Jiang Hao. Her hands were bloody from the cuts, but she was used to it. What really surprised her was the supervisor's behavior. They hadn't been punished, and they had passed 10 days without any incident. At that moment, she saw the supervisor suddenly make a move. He swung his hand and threw a long sword, which flew directly toward her. A powerful aura erupted. Once it made contact, it would undoubtedly kill her. How could someone like him change? The punishment was just much later than before. Clang. As the woman closed her eyes and waited for death, a metallic sound echoed behind her. She instinctively turned to see a strange stone monster pinned to the wall. The monster was just 2 steps away from her. If not for the sword, she would be dead. Stay alert, Jiang Hao said. In an instant, the entire mine was in an uproar, especially the woman. She looked at Jiang Hao's back. She was now 100% sure that this person wasn't the same supervisor as before. Pass me my sword, Jiang Hao said. The woman didn't dare to hesitate and immediately wiped the blood and dirt from her hands. She pulled out the sword and handed it to Jiang Hao. He took the sword and glanced at her hands. You can rest today. What? The woman was shocked. Your physical health is too weak, and your speed is slow. Rest up, and then continue mining, Jiang Hao said calmly. The woman looked at the man before her. She had never felt like this before. It was as if she was being treated like a person. Driven by an inexplicable impulse, she said, "You must be the light of the righteous path." When she realized what she had said, she lowered her head and retreated. Jiang Hao didn't mind. The light of the righteous path? He was just an inner sect disciple of a demonic sect. He couldn't be the light of any righteous path. Tomorrow would be the last day. The concealment talisman would disappear, and he would have to rely on his fate for the next 5 days. If nobody came to find him in those 5 days, he could continue using the concealment talisman. He still had 5 days left. However, on this day, the miner from before found him. His name was Feng Wei. Jiang Hao had already learned about his background and realized why he seemed familiar. He had checked it before just to see what was going on. While he didn't know exactly what kind of relationship this person shared with the real supervisor, this new development indicated something. There had been a new discovery, and as a miner, Feng Wei couldn't act on his own. He needed someone to accompany him. Apart from that, Jiang Hao couldn't help but feel that the supervisor had reached the Foundation establishment realm in someone else's mining site. If he were to return to the Heavenly Note sect now, he should be in a much better position. At least the mining site there was better than this one. The light inside has stabilized, and the best chance will be in 3 days, Feng Wei whispered. Tomorrow night, Jiang Hao said. He would mine for 1 more day, and then it would be evening, which would be the right time to go and check. If there were any problems, he could return immediately. After all, they would come looking for him at any time. All right. Feng Wei nodded. Jiang Hao looked at him and wanted to ask how he had achieved the Foundation establishment realm. In the end, he didn't ask. Perhaps he would never realize that the senior who had given him a pill out of kindness had already reached the Golden Core realm. Just 17 or 18 years had passed since then. That night, Jiang Hao took out all the storage treasures he had obtained. During this period, he hadn't had the time to check them one by one. He needed to take a look now. There were a total of 9 storage treasures. The first 3 only contained some trivial items. They did have some spirit stones, but the total only added up to 3,000. It was meager, and there weren't even a few ordinary magical items. He had no idea where the Blood Shadow Sect's people had spent the spirit stones. LNE next twi were better. Elne contained a total ot tmrty elgant 1000 spirit stones, along with some pills and magical items. The total value was probably around 50,000. This was what was unspent. If the people hadn't spent the money, it would have been even more. The person from the Sunset Immortal sect has a great background, Jiang Hao said with envy. The last one contained 200 spirit stones, which was still a good harvest. In total, the spirit stones were 41,265. In addition to what he had on him, he now had around 46,000 spirit stones. It's somewhat unexpected. I've become wealthy again. The spirit beast will receive more gifts. After packing up his belongings, Jiang Hao closed his eyes to rest. He waited for a new day to arrive. The following night, Jiang Hao watched the mine with some reluctance. He didn't know if he could continue mining after tonight. He was still some distance away from reaching the next stage of his cultivation realm. In the dead of night, he and Feng Wei walked through the mine. Feng Wei explained many things to him. He had discovered the location, and only he could enter it. It wasn't easy for others to enter, even if they found it. So, there was no need to worry. For now, only the two of them were aware of it. Jiang Hao glanced at Feng Wei. He knew that he suspected he might not be the real supervisor. He didn't care about that. He was just passing through here temporarily. He didn't want to cause any major trouble, nor did he want to make friends with anyone. Jiang Hao felt that there was a change in the surroundings, as if something was altering his perception. It's not a natural formation. It's influenced from the inside, Jiang Hao said. Feng Wei looked at the man beside him in surprise. Then, he nodded. Yes, I suspect there's an extraordinary formation inside. Have you studied it? Jiang Hao was surprised. You might not believe it, senior, but I was stuck at the 9th stage of the Lifeblood refinement realm for a long time before I reached the foundation establishment realm. To not appear so useless, I studied formations. Later, I encountered some documents related to formations and gained some knowledge. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to find this place, Feng Wei said with a bitter smile. Jiang Hao nodded. Those days must have been tough. Feng Wei was surprised. For a moment, he began to understand why the miners had privately referred to this person as the light of the righteous path. This was the most righteous person they had ever seen. Chapter 689, Chapter 689, Encountering a Rare or Vein. Chapter 689, Encountering a Rare or Vein. Jiang Hao looked around and felt that this place was indeed unusual, but it didn't seem to offer any mining benefits. He could only explore it. After a while, they arrived at a narrow passage. It was just wide enough for one person to pass through. Feng Wei turned to Jiang Hao. I'll go ahead. Jiang Hao nodded. He wasn't worried about being trapped or kicked out. He was merely curious and didn't care whether he obtained anything. He didn't need that many chances. The opportunities he already had were enough for a lifetime. There was no need to strive for more. If he kept his mental state calm, he wouldn't be influenced by external factors and could continue forward. Sometimes, external opportunities were attractive, but they might disrupt his original path to success. These opportunities often came with risks, and if he were dragged into trouble and couldn't mine or cultivate spirit herbs, it could destroy his original opportunities. The passage was not short, and Jiang Hao followed Feng Wei for quite some time. Finally, they reached a spacious cave. There were many formations in this cave. It made it difficult for those who didn't understand formations. Jiang Hao suddenly realized that this junior was quite knowledgeable in formations. We're here. Feng Wei stood at the edge of the cave. In front of them was their intended destination. It was a massive formation that covered the entire cave. What kind of formation is this? Jiang Hao saw a formation that covered the entire cave with spiritual energy flowing within. I'll investigate. Feng Wei approached it cautiously. Jiang Hao nodded and activated his daily appraisal ability. Rare veins. Jiang Hao had an idea of what that meant. It was a forgotten formation, which meant that no one knew what existed on the other side. If he could pass through unnoticed, he could mine rare ores. It should be better than what he was doing here, and his advancement to the next stage would become more achievable. He walked into the formation and felt a strange sensation. It was similar to the feeling of the Heaven Secret's hidden talisman. Can this formation conceal divine insights? Jiang Hao wondered. Perhaps because if this formation was forgotten, it meant they didn't want anyone to know about it. Now, he needed to figure out how to use it. Senior. At that point, Feng Wei approached him. This appears to be a teleportation formation, but we don't know where it leads. Using it is risky. Do you dare to do it? Jiang Hao asked. I was going to ask you that, senior. I'm just a prisoner, and there's no hope for me. Naturally, I want to try my luck. But you have a bright future. You must think this through, senior, Feng Wei said. No problem, Jiang Hao said softly. Let's give it a try. The risk wasn't that great according to his appraisal. He could give it a shot, but he had to be prepared to escape if things went south. In that case, I'll try to activate it, Feng Wei said. Jiang Hao nodded and didn't say much. At the center of the formation, he felt a surge of power from below, and then his entire body was enveloped by a force. With a flash of light, the scene before Jiang Hao changed. It was still a massive cave, but there were about a dozen exits, and they all showed signs of abandonment. Feng Wei looked around in excitement. He felt that he could finally escape the mines. The restriction on your body is about to activate, Jiang Hao said suddenly. Jiang Hao couldn't help but admire this junior. He was indeed quite skilled. What do you plan to do, senior? Feng Wei asked. Jiang Hao didn't answer. He went into one of the caves and started mining. Soon, he found a pleasant surprise. A purple bubble dropped. This was the first pleasant surprise. There probably wouldn't be any more such bubbles in the future, but the fact that it was purple indicated the presence of rare ores in this place. I'll stay here and mine. Friend, you can explore around, Jiang Hao said. This was a rare vein, and he couldn't leave. With his heavenly secrets hidden talisman, he might be able to mine here longer. If the Heavenly Note sect kept battling for a few years, he could mine here. But there was still Hong Yuye. He couldn't conceal himself from her. Jiang Hao looked at Feng Wei. His cultivation was too weak. It would take at least a late-stage Golden Core Realm cultivator to threaten him. Jiang Hao shook his head. He could only take one step at a time. Feng Wei looked somewhat surprised but soon realized that this person had only come here for wealth. I'll explore around, and if I find anything, I'll come back and inform you, senior, Feng Wei said. Jiang Hao nodded and began mining. Clang, clang. As the hoe collided with the rocks, blue bubbles kept appearing. The rate at which blue bubbles appeared was faster than before. Jiang Hao was delighted to see this, but he didn't get too smug. He left marks around the area to prevent any unexpected disaster. 5 days quickly passed, but Jiang Hao never stopped mining. Each day brought him 4 to 6 blue bubbles, along with numerous white ones. He could clearly sense the changes in his body. This place was truly a land of opportunity. In addition to mining, he also collected some ores. As for Feng Wei, he returned 3 times within 5 days. It seemed like he was exploring but hadn't found a way out yet. Jiang Hao checked his interface. Another day of mining, and I'll be able to advance. He needed to advance immediately. Artnowals, mining Turtner would be a waste. As he was about to advance, Jiang Hao focused on mining faster. The more he mined, the faster he became. Finally, in the late hours of the night, a blue bubble dropped. At this point, Jiang Hao stopped. It's full. He sighed with relief and looked back. He saw that he had mined a considerable portion of the cave. He wondered how long this vein would last, and he was unsure how many spirit stones he could get from the ores he had collected. After a while, Jiang Hao returned to the vicinity of the formation. He set up a simple formation around himself with his own defensive measures. Only then did he put his mind at ease and begin his advancement to the next stage. Chapter 690. Chapter 690. It seems like we're about to find something special. Chapter 690. It seems like we're about to find something special. Feng Wei looked around for a long time and walked through several tunnels. He discovered a hopeless fact: there was no way out. It was as if this place was sealed, with no way in or out. The only exit was the teleportation formation. But going back would mean death. He had disappeared for so many days. Once caught, he would surely endure unimaginable torment. With his current physical health, he couldn't bear it. He still had hope. He had hope in the person he had come here with. For the first time, he felt that working with someone could also be enjoyable. The person wouldn't kill him or use him. At first, he had prepared to be murdered, but this person did nothing except mine. Even if the ores here were exceptional, he would find a way to take them out. Otherwise, it was useless. Upon careful consideration, he understood that the person could get out of here unlike him. When he returned to the formation, Feng Wei sensed a presence. He saw that the person was sitting cross-legged and was enveloped by power. There were signs of a breakthrough. Is this an advancement? Is he going to advance to the Golden Core realm? But it didn't seem like it. His cultivation realm was low, and he couldn't discern the realm of the person in front of him, but it seemed much stronger than the Golden Core realm. After hesitating for some time, Feng Wei sat down and guarded one of the tunnel entrances to prove his goodwill. The next day, at noon, Jiang Hao suppressed the energy in his body and opened his eyes. He looked around and saw Feng Wei sitting in meditation in the distance. There was no one else nearby. He heaved a sigh of relief. In the past, after an advancement, he could usually see Hong Yuye. This time, her not being there surprised him. With Hong Yuye around, he couldn't mine. The white bubbles could affect his body and make him easily noticeable. So, having someone like that around was sometimes troublesome. "Congratulations, senior," said Feng Wei. Jiang Hao nodded. "Did you not find an exit, friend?" "No," Feng Wei said with a bitter smile. "It seems this way is sealed, and it's not easy to find a way out. There may be an exit, but with my current strength, I'm not capable of finding it." Jiang Hao understood. Sometimes, the door was right there, but if your level was not high enough, you couldn't perceive it. "Are you planning to go back then?" he asked. Feng Wei shook his head. "I want to try again." "How about you, senior? Are you going back?" "In a while," Jiang Hao said. He would have to return. If he was discovered, he would go back to his sect. If not, he would consider himself trapped here. With that in mind, he turned to the formation. He could destroy it, and no one would be able to come in here. However, this was still the Shenyuan clan's formation. If he destroyed it, it might create issues. It wasn't worth it. Shaking his head, Jiang Hao closed his eyes and began refining his cultivation. He extracted all his cultivation and lifeblood. As for other things, he was in no hurry for now. In the evening, Jiang Hao had finished refining his cultivation. He was at the peak now. "Now, I wonder if there is a gap between my strength and the sect's top disciple. I haven't seen the top disciple yet, so I don't know their cultivation realm." After some thought, Jiang Hao decided to continue mining. This time, Feng Wei followed him, which made him cautious. "Let's mine together," Feng Wei said. Jiang Hao looked at him. After some hesitation, he asked, "What cultivation technique are you practicing?" Feng Wei was momentarily stunned. "The 100 transformations of spirit control." "Can you show it to me?" Jiang Hao asked. After a slight hesitation, Feng Wei handed over a book. Jiang Hao sat down and activated his clear and pure heart ability. It took him about a night to study the technique with his current knowledge and the boost from his divine ability. He then said to Feng Wei, "Practice it. I will teach you." After half a day of explanation, Feng Wei finally had a sudden realization and fell into deep meditation. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. He then started mining. They were too far away, and he had used the Heavenly Secret's hidden talisman. When it expired, he would go near the formation to mine. This time, he struck a rich vein. He kept mining until early September. With Feng Wei's significant increase in cultivation, he had no more interest in mining. Clang! A crisp sound rang out, and Jiang Hao found that the wall in front of him was unusually hard. He touched the stone and found that it was also an ore but much harder than the ones outside. Could this be an even rarer type of ore? He decided to mine the surrounding area first. If it caused trouble, and he had to leave, it would be a loss not to have mined the ore nearby. He had only just started mining when he felt the stone tablet vibrating. There was a gathering tonight. I need to think about what happened in the last gathering and prepare. When he was mining, he had put his things aside. But he needed to find his notebooks again. Hong Yuye wasn't here yet, but it was only a matter of time. Becoming stronger was essential, but staying alive was more important. There were some powerful individuals that he couldn't afford to provoke. He put away his tools, took out a notebook, and began reviewing the information from the previous gathering. He also needed to see what had happened recently and whether he could gather more information from the gathering. Coincidentally, he could also check what had been happening in the south. Gui must be keeping an eye on it. Was he caught? In the Black Heaven sect, Baiju appeared surprised. Yes, this time we went for him too. After getting the news, we rushed over, only to find some ruins. After asking around, we learned that Yin Zichen had been caught. We don't have clear information about who did it. It might be some relatively powerful sect in the south. We plan to visit them one by one. Yin Zichen has taken some things from our sect, and we need him to return them. As for his personal well-being, we don't care, said a middle-aged man. Baiju nodded and then handed over a pill. Take this, it can heal the injuries on your body. By the way, if you know where Yin Zichen is, can you inform me? The Heavenly Spirit tribe also has grievances with him, and we want to find him. All right. The middle-aged man took the pill. After the man left, Baiju sighed. This is troublesome. I thought we were about to find him, but now it seems that someone else is involved. I don't know where to look. If it's some small sect, it's fine, but I'm afraid of being caught by major sects. Yin Zichen was not weak. Ordinary sects wouldn't be able to catch him. How did you figure that out, princess? Qiao Yi asked. He was injured. I happened to be there and offered to heal him. That's how I know, said Baiju. Not everything requires scheming and deceit. Sometimes, when we are honest and sincere, we can't help each other out. If it wasn't something important, nobody would look for it. We can't ask about what he might have taken from the Mountain Sea Sword sect. What Qiao Yi wanted to know was how the princess had figured it out. Suddenly, Baiju seemed to sense something and smiled. It's all right. There may still be more information. For now, let's pay attention to the Grand Earth Emperor's affairs. We've already come this far. Chapter 691, Chapter 691, Jing quietly reveals the answer. Chapter 691, Jing quietly reveals the answer. Greetings, Senior Dan Yuan. Jiang Hao and the others respectfully greeted him. After several months, they had finally gathered here once again. Dan Yuan inquired about their cultivation progress. Everyone hadn't cultivated any new techniques, so there were no major issues. So, do we have any news about the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl? Jiang Hao asked. The end of all things has stopped for now. They're probably waiting for the people from the Mountain Sea Sword sect. However, they are still preparing, and so far, they don't know the specific location. If they find out, there will likely be a major battle, Gui said. It's all right if we find it at the same time they do. At that time, we can inform the immortal sects, and their people will naturally take action. Any sect in the south will have to cooperate, Liu said. Just be careful we aren't too late in finding it out. Someone is definitely keeping an eye on the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl, and they've probably considered everything. Even though they are extremists, they are not fools, Xing said. Jiang Hao felt that now was the right time. It's in Devil's Den in the Heavenly Note sect. Gui, who had initially intended to discuss the matter, suddenly paused. She looked at Jing in disbelief. What did Jing just say? She asked the other two beside her. Xing and Liu glanced at her but did not speak. They were also shocked. The Earth Extreme Silent Pearl had not only been found but its exact location had been revealed. Are you sure, friend Jing? Dan Yuan asked. I've seen it, Jiang Hao said calmly. Gui felt a cold shiver run down her spine. Jing was indeed fated to encounter such things. The Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl, the Nine Nether, the Earth Extreme Heart Devouring Pearl, and now, the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl were somehow connected to him. Dan Yuan nodded. If the information is accurate, then it's enough. What would you like, friend Jing? Have you thought about taking the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl? Jiang Hao shook his head. Having too many powerful items was dangerous. It was better to send it to the eastern region. Is the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl under the control of the Heavenly Note sect? Xing asked. If that was the case, who would dare to approach that area? It shouldn't be, Gui said. I remember that the heavenly fate misfortune pearl is also in that area. Perhaps they were all sealed in the same place. In that case, I think we should deal with the end of all things rather than breaking the seal, Liu said. That would indeed be the best course of action. The Earth Extreme Silent Pearl had remained stable for many years. It was better to leave it that way. The end of all things is not easy to deal with, Gui said. We can pass the news about the end of all things to the immortal sects in the south. Even if we don't take action, we can still keep everyone informed and ready, Dan Yuan said with a smile. Jiang Hao nodded. This plan seemed to be the best. The immortal sects would send people to investigate, and they would know the exact situation since they had information about the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. They didn't need to worry about alerting the enemy. However, he hadn't yet thought about what reward he should ask for. He might need Gui's help, and there was no other option. He could use it to in exchange. After Dan Yuan finished speaking, it was time for trade. Gui immediately took the lead. I want to mention it again. Yin Zichen's task is still valid and ongoing. Help me find him. If you can find his whereabouts, that'll count too. I thought you already found him? Liu asked curiously. Yes, but someone took him away. So far, even the Mountain Sea Sword sect doesn't know about his location, Gui said in annoyance. I also inquired about Wu Yang. There was such a person who came to the south. He seemed to have conflicts with someone. After that, he disappeared. Liu nodded. I heard about it too. It said that the person who acted had very concealed methods. They left no traces. In the south, there aren't too many forces with such strength. Yin Zichen said the same thing. I suspect that the person who acted might actually be a group of people. I'm just a bit puzzled about why they would abduct these two individuals, Gui said in confusion. Liu thought for a moment. There is another possibility. I recently looked into Yin Zichen and found that he had contact with the people of the Heavenly Tower. He may have known Wu Yang before everything happened. Gui suddenly said, so, you mean these two individuals might have met, and when one of them was targeted, they were both abducted together? That's a possibility. Liu nodded. Jiang Hao was surprised. He knew that a member of the Heavenly Tower was held captive in the Lawless Tower. That person was most likely Wu Yang. As for Yin Zichen, it was unclear if he was to the Lawless Tower. If their assumptions were correct, Yin Zichen would also be in the Lawless Tower. Jiang Hao needed to go there and confirm whether this was true. If he found information on Yin Zichen, Gui could help him deliver a message to the Sunset Immortal sect. Dan Yuan's reward could also be saved for future use. As for Xing, he had no tasks. Jiang Hao, as always, remained silent. I need a cultivation technique from the Heavenly Spirit Tribe, said Gui. The Heavenly Spirit Tribe's techniques include the Heaven Bestowing Technique, 6 Earth Attribute Techniques, and 9 Sages Techniques, Xing said to Gui. Which one would you want? The Heaven Bestowing Technique will do, Gui said. All right. I'll give it to you next time, Xing said. Jiang Hao couldn't help but admire Xing. He was truly a gifted disciple of an immortal sect. He had made the Clear Sky School's freedom technique readily available to them. Now, he was willing to get the Heavenly Spirit Tribe's Heaven Bestowing Technique. Jiang Hao doubted even Liu from the Heavenly Tower could get them so easily. Most of the techniques requested in the gathering were fulfilled by Xing. He had provided them with Shifting Stars, Star-Moon Refinement Technique, Myriad Body Technique, Freedom Technique, and also the Freeform Technique. What do I have to give in return? Gui asked. It would be great if you could go to the Black Heaven sect and witness the Shenyuan sword. If possible, please use a magic treasure to imprint it with the sword intent of the Shenyuan sword, said Xing. Gui felt reluctant. That is a bit troublesome. I don't know where the Shenyuan sword is. It's at the Black Heaven sect, on the Sun Moon Peak, Xing said. Gui nodded. Sun Moon Peak. Jiang Hao was surprised. Isn't that where I have been mining? Had he unknowingly come across the sword? If the Shenyuan sword successfully manifests in the treasure, I will help you. But if it doesn't, then I am powerless to do anything, Gui said. All right. You'll need to go somewhere to get the magic treasure, Xing said. The manifestation of the Shenyuan sword's intent requires the core of the burning immortal formation, Jiang Hao said. The others were surprised. Xing breathed a sigh of relief. I have it. He revealed the core of the burning immortal formation. This didn't require any compensation because it was meant for everyone. This way, under the right conditions, the people at the gathering would be able to use it. I happen to be at the Black Heavens sect right now. I can try to go and look around the Sun-Moon Peak, Gui said. Jiang Hao was speechless. Chapter 692, Chapter 692, Senior Brother, Watch Me Show Off. Chapter 692, Senior Brother, Watch Me Show Off. Gui would head to the Sun-Moon Peak. Jiang Hao was at the foot of that peak. The presence of rare ores there had a reason. It seems I have to finish mining as soon as possible and get out of there. Jiang Hao had never expected that the one who would drive him back to the sect wouldn't be an enemy but an acquaintance from the gathering. However, there was still some time left. Gui would have to get the magic treasure first, then figure out a way to break the enchantments around the place, and only then would he be able to enter. He needed to be ready to leave at any moment. After the exchange, they talked casually. Gui shared information about the Black Heaven sect and told them that many sects had headed that way, including the Mountain Seasword sect. However, because they all had tasks related to the end of all things, they probably wouldn't linger there for long. There wasn't much news about the Saint Bandits, and the Fallen Immortal clan were the most likely culprits. Xing also mentioned that the Fallen Immortal clan had grievances with the Grand Earth Emperor, but that probably wouldn't affect the Emperor's appearance. Why is that? Gui asked. It might be related to the Shenyuan sword. The sword has been dormant for a long time. It is probably sealing something related to the Fallen Immortal clan, Xing said. His theory was the most likely true. A divine weapon like the Shenyuan sword wouldn't stay inert for so long. Something must have held it back. Now that the Shenyuan clan was beginning to rise, various seals, including those related to the Shenyuan sword, were starting to break. Gui instinctively looked at Jiang Hao and wondered if it had something to do with him. Why are you looking at me? That has nothing to do with me. Jiang Hao felt that these people were very deeply involved. They seemed to be keeping a close eye on him as if ready to pounce at the slightest provocation. Liu discussed overseas affairs. He mentioned that the Astronomical Academy had discovered something and was tracing the whereabouts of a senior. The senior was most likely overseas, but it was just a guess, and no one paid it much attention. Jiang Hao was interested in Shong'an, but no one mentioned him. So far, Gui hadn't encountered anyone from the Clear Sky sect. However, it was certain that they were somewhere in the southern region. Overseas individuals had initially intended to teach King Hai Luo a lesson he would never forget, but because of the ancestral dragon's heart, they had been distracted. By the way, there's one more thing. Liu looked at Jiang Hao. According to the information I received, Kai Tian has gone to serve under Heavenly King Taomu. Due to his background, he has been promoted and can even meet King Taomu if needed. However, I can still deliver a message to him if you want. Jiang Hao was surprised by Kai Tian's progress. He had no intention of meeting Kai Tian at the moment. He preferred to let him be for now. As for the message, he didn't need to tell Kai Tian anything right now. He would consider it if Kai Tian tried to double-cross him again. He didn't need Kai Tian's loyalty. It would be enough if he just gave him some information. That would be his buffer if Hong Yuye asked about Jiang Hao's progress. The gathering concluded. When Jiang Hao opened his eyes again, he immediately took out his notebook and began recording everything that had happened at the gathering. The information about the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl had been shared with Dan Yuan and others at the gathering. They needed to be vigilant for any approaching powerful individuals. He also had a pending reward for providing the information. Yin Zichen might be in the Lawless Tower. The Shenyuan sword was at the Sun-Moon Peak, and Gui might be visiting soon. The other information was about Kai Tian getting promoted and working under Heavenly King Taomu. Some people were planning a retaliation against Heavenly King Hai Luo, and about the Astronomical Academy searching for their senior. There was no information on Shong'an. This information wasn't very important, so Jiang Hao didn't note it down. He took note of the 3 techniques of the Heavenly Spirit Tribe, the Heaven Bestowing Technique, 6 Earth Attribute Techniques, and 9 Sages Techniques. This was important information. After putting away his notebook, Jiang Hao looked at the mine. Finally, he reached the solid ore he had found earlier. He didn't have much time left, so he decided to attempt digging this rare ore. There was a possibility that he might find something special, so he needed to be prepared. In the early morning, on the sun-moon peak, Shenyuan Tai sat cross-legged and practiced his breathing technique on the highest point of the peak. It seemed as if he could merge with the mountain and become one with it. Despite still being at the early stage of the soul ascension realm, his aura was extraordinary. It felt as though his aura concealed unfathomable power. In front of him was a golden flower that seemed to resonate with him as if they shared a deep connection. After some time, Shenyuan Tai opened his eyes and looked at the flower. He let out a sigh. "Senior brother, do you know the whereabouts of the human emperor's sword?" Shenyuan, he asked. She had been waiting beside him. "Yes, I do." Shenyuan Tai nodded. Shenyuan he as Kia eagerly. Near ISLTC Shenyuan Tai looked down at the ground. "Right here." "Here?" Shenyuan he was astonished. "It's beneath the sun-moon peak," Shenyuan Tai said. "So close. Then, why haven't any of the seniors discovered it yet?" Shenyuan he was surprised. Because the Shenyuan sword suppresses the fallen immortal clan's most important treasure. This sword cannot be allowed to emerge, even if the emperor has been gone for a long time. His sword still guards this land. Shenyuan Tai sighed. "Can't it emerge if you become the Grand Earth Emperor?" Shenyuan he asked. Shenyuan Tai chuckled. "You may have misunderstood, junior sister. The human emperor is the human emperor, and the Grand Earth Emperor is the Grand Earth Emperor. They are 2 different things. The Grand Earth Emperor is a title bestowed by the mountain and the sea, while the human emperor is a unique designation. To become the human emperor, one doesn't need to be blessed by the mountain and the sea, but they would need to be revered by all clans in the world." Shenyuan he was surprised. "Does that mean the Shenyuan sword can't ever be released?" she asked in disappointment. "Not exactly," Shenyuan Tai shook his head. As Shenyuan he was about to ask further, a young woman came flying toward them on a sword. "Senior brother Shenyuan, senior sister Shenyuan, it's been a long time," said Baizhu. She smiled and landed in front of them. "Junior sister Baizhu, what are you doing here?" Shenyuan he was surprised. "I've returned from a long trip." "What are you 2 talking about?" Baizhu asked. "We were discussing the Shenyuan sword," Shenyuan he said. "Oh, I came here for that. I know the location of the Shenyuan sword," Baizhu said mysteriously. "Can you guess where it is?" "Where is it?" Shenyuan he was surprised. Baizhu pointed to the ground. "Right beneath our feet, under the sun-moon." Both Shenyuan he and Shenyuan Tai were taken aback. They had just learned about it, but it seemed Baizhu had already found out. "I know how to make the Shenyuan sword emerge. Do you want to hear about it?" asked Baizhu in delight. "Junior sister Baizhu, since you know so much, you must also know that the Shenyuan sword is suppressing something below. It won't emerge until we deal with those issues," Shenyuan Tai said. "Oh, is that so?" Baizhu raised her eyebrows and smiled. "What if I tell you that I have the core of the burning immortal formation?" Shenyuan Tai narrowed his eyes. Chapter 693, Chapter 693, The Shenyuan Sword. Chapter 693, The Shenyuan Sword. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. He was now well prepared, with hidden purple energy around him. If any issues arose, this purple energy would defend him. This would buy him time to escape. "Senior." Feng Wei walked over to him. Jiang Hao thought for a moment. "Stay here. Don't move around." Perhaps he might still need Feng Wei's help. Although Feng Wei didn't quite understand, he nodded. Jiang Hao approached the hard ore and swung his pickaxe. In just a few days, Gui would arrive. He needed to quickly dig out something rare from this place. With enough harvest, he could advance faster. He thought that it was even possible for him to reach the late stage of the return to Void Realm in this. Clang, clang. Jiang Hao continued to dig, but he only found white bubbles. There were very few blue bubbles at that. After a while, he couldn't dig with the pickaxe. He had to take out the primordial heavenly sword as a substitute. Clang. The heavenly sword was indeed exceptional. It instantly cut through the ore. However, what surprised Jiang Hao was that the sword's strike had created a hole as if it had cut through the wall entirely. Did we dig through? Feng Wei asked. Jiang Hao frowned. If they had indeed dug through, it would be a massive loss on his part. There was no choice but to go inside and take a look. There didn't seem to be any dangers here for the time being. A human-sized entrance was quickly carved out by the heavenly sword. Everything appeared pitch black, even when Jiang Hao tossed a fireball inside. This wasn't an ordinary place. Senior, would you like me to explore ahead? Feng Wei asked. Jiang Hao gave him a brief glance and shook his head. No need. There was no need to let Feng Wei take the lead and get himself into danger. He had to do it himself. After entering, he sensed 3 different auras. One was of despair, another one was majestic, and the last one was filled with a dragon's might. Soon, the dark space began to light up. The surroundings gradually became visible as flames rose from below and illuminated everything. This was a large underground cave. Lava covered the floor. There was a circular platform in the center, which was surrounded by 3 small, circular platforms. There were numerous formation runes on them. Aside from these, the most eye-catching thing was at the center of the middle platform. There was a sword buried in the ground. Its blade was shrouded in dark mist. Within this mist, a dragon's shadow was seen battling with it. Jiang Hao wasted no time and activated the daily appraisal. The human emperor's sword, the Shenyuan sword. Jiang Hao looked at the sword shrouded in black mist in shock. He had been avoiding it for a long time, but in the end, he had arrived here. Now that I'm here, I should do something. He looked around to see where he could carve the burning immortal formation. Quickly, he noticed some gaps in the circular formations. They required certain runes, but also some other materials. What materials are needed to activate the burning immortal formation? Jiang Hao took out a spirit stone. When he put it in the formation, there was no response. Do I need to wait and appraise it tomorrow? He then remembered the ore he had dug up and placed it in the formation. Instantly, the ore was absorbed. It seems I need these ores. Without hesitation, he placed all the ores into the formation and realized that he was still short of a few of them. There aren't many ores left outside. Does that mean I need all the ores to activate the burning immortal formation? Jiang Hao wasn't entirely sure, but it seemed that was likely. He had wanted to sell the ores for more spirit stones, but that seemed impossible now. However, it wasn't a total loss. Mining here had given him many blue bubbles. Now, he had the core for the formation but lacked the core runes. Jiang Hao called Feng Wei into the cave. Feng Wei had waited outside because he was afraid that there might be some rare treasure inside, and it would corrupt the senior with him. He thought that this strange senior might kill him to keep him quiet. Now that the senior had asked for his help first, he didn't need to worry. Senior, what is it in here? Feng Wei asked cautiously as he poked his head inside. Come over here, Jiang Hao said softly. When Feng Wei approached, Jiang Hao pointed at the formation runes on the ground. Do you understand this formation? Feng Wei carefully observed it for a moment. I can understand it to some extent. This formation seems incomplete. If I provide you with the core runes, can you complete it? Jiang Hao asked. Since he wasn't an expert in this field, he didn't want to do it himself. If he did something wrong, it would be quite troublesome. It was better to let someone skilled handle it. I need to study it first. This formation is quite profound, and I can't guarantee anything, said Feng Wei humbly. Jiang Hao nodded and handed a book to Feng Wei. The book contained the core formation patterns he had obtained from Xing. When Feng Wei took the book and looked at it, his eyes lit up. He couldn't fully understand the principles of this level of formation, but he could still sketch it step by step. Furthermore, he might learn something from it. Thank you so much, Senior, Feng Wei said in excitement. Jiang Hao nodded. After exchanging a few words, he left. He needed to continue mining to activate the formation here completely. If he didn't mine, someone else would. As for Feng Wei, he had made it very clear that he should not enter the central platform. It wasn't a place that Foundation Establishment realm cultivators could safely enter. The black mist alone could be fatal. After that, Jiang Hao went outside to continue mining. He obtained more bubbles. His cultivation points were gradually accumulating. Outside, Shenyuan Tai and Shenyuan He were looking for an entrance. Junior sister Bai Zhu seems very well informed, Shenyuan He said. That's to be expected. She was extraordinary from the very beginning. When the elder brought her here, he explicitly said she was talented. It did surprise me. Her information is more accurate than mine, and she even obtained the most crucial core formation patterns. Shenyuan Tai sighed. Speaking of which, junior sister Bai Zhu went out again. She even asked for our permission to explore the Sun-Moon Peak. I wonder what she's up to. Shenyuan He hesitated. Could it be that she also wants to obtain the Shenyuan sword? At that, Shenyuan Tai laughed. The Shenyuan sword is not something that anyone can grab. If she manages to grab it, then I should just give it to her. Senior brother, you are very magnanimous. Shenyuan He shook her head. It's not about being magnanimous. That sword doesn't belong to me. It's the human emperor's sword, Shenyuan Tai said. But the human emperor's surname was Shenyuan. That's why we can't bring shame to our name. Chapter 694, Chapter 694, Conversation with the True Dragon. Chapter 694, Conversation with the True Dragon. Outside the Black Heaven sect, a group of people in black robes stood in a forest. They gazed at the distant mountain peak. They were lost in thought. Will the Grand Earth Emperor appear soon? Shouldn't we try to stop it? Asked a young woman. Our orders from above are to wait, set up formations, and resonate with our bloodlines, said a middle-aged man. Why is that? Someone asked curiously. Since we can't prevent the Grand Earth Emperor from appearing, we should try to gain some benefits from it. What we might obtain remains uncertain. In any case, the clan has instructed us not to take rash actions, so we must wait quietly, said an elderly man. The disciples of the Mountain Sea Sword sect and the Clear Sky School are very active in this area. It's risky to act recklessly here, said someone else. The previous incident with the Bright Moon sect had made them lose too much. Moreover, they couldn't prevent the Grand Earth Emperor from appearing, which was frustrating. The Grand Earth Emperor was a mortal enemy, especially since they might be likely from the Shenyuan clan. If we can't make a move in the Black Heaven sect, why don't we just go to the Heavenly Note sect? They are currently engaged in a battle. It's a rare opportunity. We can rescue Mi Chen and also capture that person named Jiang Hao. Isn't the clan quite curious about him? Said a young man. I know a bit about people related to this Jiang Hao. It's said that he has a junior sister he values greatly. She is at the Black Heaven sect right now. Maybe we can start by approaching her first. The man in the lead fell silent for a moment. Send 3 people to handle this matter. Whether we succeed or fail, do not regroup. Just send a message. Shortly after, 3 individuals left the group and went in a different direction. Half a month later, in the middle of September, Jiang Hao noticed that the number of ores he dug up was gradually decreasing. The number of bubbles was also dropping rapidly, and the formation was about to be filled. This indicated that the ore outside was meant to activate the formation inside. If he had taken the ores with him, the burning immortal formation might not have been activated at all. I'm still not selfish enough, Jiang Hao sarcastically remarked to himself. The Shenyuan sword was the human emperor's sword. Even though the human emperor was long gone, the sword continued to suppress something in there. However, with the passage of time, the Shenyuan sword might be entirely corroded by the immortal seed and eventually be destroyed. If there were substitutes for the ore, it would be fine. If not, he couldn't just take them away. Clang. A piece of ore fell, and Jiang Hao picked it up before heading into the cave. He hadn't expected to be able to mine for another half a month. It seemed that finding this place from the outside was not so easy. Even Gui would need to spend a lot of time and effort to find this place. Besides, she would need the Black Heaven sect's approval to explore this mine. Otherwise, entering carelessly would cause a lot of trouble for her. These people acted with discretion and wouldn't easily oppose other sects. "How is it going, friend?" Jiang Hao asked as he entered the cave. Feng Wei had been meticulously sketching the formation. He focused deeply on his work. His talent was indeed commendable, and Jiang Hao couldn't help but feel inferior in his knowledge about formation compared to this junior. "Only a little more to go. It should take another day or two," Feng Wei said. 2 more days, huh? Jiang Hao thought that the final moments were often the most susceptible to disasters. However, there was no need to rush. If someone arrived here, there was nothing he could do. He had mined most of the ore and fed it to the formation. He had done all he could. There was no need for him to stay. Before he left, there was one more thing he had to do. He looked at the Shenyuan sword. The black mist was affecting the sword and needed to be removed. "Actually, I can do it faster if you want, senior," said Feng Wei. "No need. Take it slow, and don't make any mistakes," Jiang Hao said. Feng Wei nodded. He hesitated for a long time as if he wanted to say something. In the end, he gave up. "Do you want to ask about this sword?" Jiang Hao asked him. "No. I'm of a lower cultivation realm and don't have the right to know most things." Feng Wei quickly shook his head. "This sword is the Shenyuan sword," Jiang Hao said. "It's the human emperor's sword." "The human emperor's sword?" Feng Wei was taken aback. The human emperor's name only existed in legends for him. Moreover, it wasn't even confirmed whether the human emperor was actually real. Now, he was being told that he was preparing a formation for the human emperor's sword all along. It all seemed like an illusion. "Senior, are you planning to take the Shenyuan sword?" he asked. Jiang Hao looked at him and smiled. "Do you think I'm qualified to do that?" "Yes," Feng Wei said confidently. Jiang Hao shook his head. After that, he put all the ores into the formation. He left a few to be added later. When the runes were completely charged and the burning immortal formation took shape, there would be a suppression effect. At that time, he could approach the center and take a closer look at the Shenyuan sword. He didn't know how mighty the human emperor had been back in the day. He could only find that out by examining the sword. 2 days later, Jiang Hao found that there were no more ores to mine, but his harvest this time was substantial. Finally, Feng Wei had completed the engraving on his side. Jiang Hao appraised it and saw no problems with it. As long as the Shenyuan sword resonated with a person, the formation would activate. When the immortal seed was destroyed, the Shenyuan sword would reappear in the world. "Senior, should I go outside?" Feng Wei asked cautiously as Jiang Hao prepared to go to the central platform. "No need. You can stay here and watch. Perhaps we can catch a glimpse of the true form of the human emperor's sword, after all," Jiang Hao said. If anyone else had said this, Feng Wei's first thought would be that the person intended to kill him in that instant. However, the person in front of him was different, and he felt safe with him. That was why Feng Wei had answered without hesitation when Jiang Hao asked if he was qualified to take the sword. Jiang Hao walked to the center, where black mist enveloped the area. The burning immortal formation did have a suppressing effect on it, but it couldn't remove the mist from the Shenyuan sword. Even the true dragon's illusion could only contend with it. "Forgive me." Jiang Hao respectfully bowed to the sword. Then, the mountain sea seal appeared, and his fingers spread open. He activated the universe in a palm technique. The purple energy surged and covered the entire sword. Soon, the black mist was removed completely. In the next moment, the purple energy returned to Jiang Hao's hand and condensed into a purple bead. He had successfully sealed the black mist. Luckily, the mist didn't put up much resistance. Jiang Hao sighed in relief. If it was something like the 9 nether, it would have been immensely difficult to seal it. He had managed to seal the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl and the 9 nether because they were already in a sealed state from before. If they were in their original form, even 100 people couldn't seal them. After the black mist was sealed, the Shenyuan sword was revealed. Jiang Hao was somewhat surprised. He saw that the sword's body was covered in rust, like that of a decrepit old man. The true dragon's illusion on it also seemed dim and lifeless now. So, this is the human emperor's sword? Jiang Hao mused. It didn't look imposing at all, yet it had commanded respect from numerous clans. Are you still alive? Jiang Hao watched the image of the true dragon. This was a remnant soul of a true dragon. At that moment, the true dragon's eyes flickered slightly as it looked at Jiang Hao. Are you human? Yes. Is that so? Yes. The last one to come here was actually a human, not a dragon. I'm sorry to have disappointed you, Senior. Chapter 695. Chapter 695. I want to clean the Shenyuan sword a bit. Chapter 695. I want to clean the Shenyuan sword a bit. At the Black Heavens sect, Shenyuan Tai sighed. We still haven't found it. They had been searching on the Sun Moon Peak for half a month but hadn't found the location of the Shenyuan sword. Does it mean we won't be able to find it? Shenyuan, he asked. No. When I become the Grand Earth Emperor, it will resonate with me. But without finding it, the Shenyuan sword can't emerge in this world, Shenyuan Tai said. Should we let some of our seniors continue searching? Shenyuan, he asked. What about junior sister Baizhu? She's been back for a while and frequently visits the Sun Moon Peak, Shenyuan, he said. She seems to be more dedicated than us. Shenyuan Tai thought for a moment. Let some of the senior disciples search for it. I don't have time. Of course, don't hinder junior sister Baizhu. She's more likely to find it. Shenyuan, he nodded. Their fellow sect member had come prepared with information and was eager to help. It wouldn't be wise to hinder her way. A moment later, a young girl in a pink dress leaped toward them from a distance. Have you found it, junior sister Baizhu? Shenyuan, he asked. Not yet, but you seem to be running out of time, senior brother, said Baizhu. Yes. It's about to begin, Shenyuan Tai said as he looked toward the sky. It was a great event, and he was on the verge of becoming the Grand Earth Emperor. Can't you delay it for a while, senior brother? Baizhu cautiously asked. Delay it? Shenyuan Tai was surprised. Shenyuan, he also appeared puzzled. The Shenyuan sword is most likely to manifest when the Grand Earth Emperor appears. I need to find it as soon as possible, Baizhu said. Junior sister Baizhu, you seem very eager to bring the Shenyuan sword into this world, Shenyuan Tai said. Yes. It's part of a trade I made with a friend. He wants me to imprint the Shenyuan sword's intent on something. The reward I get in exchange is extremely important to me, Baizhu said pleadingly and held onto Shenyuan his arm. Both siblings were somewhat helpless. However, it was certain that Baizhu's friend wouldn't be an ordinary person. I'll do my best, Shenyuan Tai said. Then, I'll go look for the Shenyuan sword. I think I'll find it, said Baizhu excitedly. As they watched her depart, Shenyuan Tai suddenly asked, how old is junior sister Zhenyu? I heard she's several hundred years old, Shenyuan, he said. She still seems so young, said Shenyuan Tai. Shenyuan, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. If someone overhears that, Elder Ji will probably come looking for us one day. Shenyuan Tai walked toward the highest peak of the Black Heaven sect. Let's go. The time has come. He couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Shenyuan Tai began preparing for his ascension to the position of the Grand Earth Emperor, and the disciples of the Black Heaven sect had waited for several months for this. The disciples of the Mountain Sea Sword sect were also in the area. Many people gathered. At that moment, a senior disciple was walking along the competition platforms and wanted to see if there was anyone powerful in the south. Are there any particularly outstanding individuals here? Asked a young woman. It's hard to say, said the senior disciple and shook his head. Beside him was a young man at the Golden Core realm. Senior brother Zhuge, who are you looking for? Asked the young woman. An old friend from several years ago, Zhuge Zheng said truthfully. Why are you looking for him? She asked. The young woman was Fu Dongxue, who was very powerful and held significant status in their sect. I owe him some spirit stones, Zhuge Zheng said. Fu Dongxue was taken aback. She then laughed. At that moment, a young man walked past them. Zhuge Jin, who was in the lead, stopped and turned around. Radiant aura but without any sword intent, yet there's a strange sense of swordsmanship. He appears to be a swordsman but also not good at it at the same time. Fu Dongxue turned around for a brief glance. She appraised him and then shook her head. His talent for sword cultivation isn't that great. Zhuge Jin smiled and shook his head. Junior sister, you're too one-sided in evaluating people. Even if his talent for sword cultivation is lacking, he will surely be extraordinary in other things. I wonder which sect he is from. He is from the Heavenly Note sect. His attire seems to be from there, said Zhuge Zheng. Oh! Fu Dongxue's eyes lit up. Isn't the person you are looking for also from the Heavenly Note sect? Is it a woman? No. Zhuge Zheng shook his head. Fu Dongxue lost interest in the conversation. The Heavenly Note sect, Zhuge Zheng shook his head and sighed. This might be troublesome. That sect couldn't be provoked. That sect was related to a very important senior from their sect. They were under direct orders to avoid them. The Heavenly Note sect doesn't have any powerful sword cultivators. He sighed again and stopped thinking about it. Senior brother, are we going to visit the Heavenly Note sect? Zhuge Zheng asked. We'll go once the Grand Earth Emperor appears, and we finish observing the Shenyuan sword, Zhuge Jin said in response. Zhuge Zheng nodded. He intended to pay the spirit stones to this so-called friend. Do you think the Grand Earth Emperor will appear without any problems, senior brother? Fu Dongxue asked. It's hard to say. In fact, there's still one critical thing missing, Zhuge Jin said. What? Zhuge Zheng asked curiously. The Dragon Clan, Zhuge Jin said solemnly. When the human emperor appeared, he had the full support of the Dragon Clan. But now that the Dragon Clan has disappeared, the Grand Earth Emperor is left to fend for himself. Even if there was one member from the Dragon Clan, his path would be much smoother. Right now, it's extraordinarily difficult. Zhuge Zheng and Fu Dongxue understood this, but there was nothing they could do. They had no knowledge of the Dragon Clan's location, let alone the ability to bring them here. At the foot of the Sun Moon Peak, Jiang Hao stood in front of the sword in reverence. The true dragon phantom gazed at him as if trying to fully understand the person before it. Do you have a dragon by your side? The true dragon asked. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. That's more like it. The true dragon no longer dwelled on this issue. Are you here to take the human emperor's sword? If you want the sword, you must pass the test. No. I am not here to take the sword. I just want to do something, Jiang Hao said. What is it? The true dragon was quite curious. It was puzzled. His human had come all this way, activated the burning immortal formation, and banished the black mist when he didn't even want the sword for himself. Jiang Hao looked at the Shenyuan sword. This sword is about to emerge into the world. It shouldn't be covered in rust. Even if the human emperor is no longer here, it should still shine brightly. What do you mean? The true dragon was puzzled. I just want to clean it a bit, Jiang Hao said. The true dragon appeared shocked. Many emotions flashed through its face. Clean it, it asked. After all you have done to reach here, you just want to clean it? Just that. Yes. Just that. Jiang Hao nodded. He genuinely had no other requests. To be able to clean such a divine item would already be more than enough for him. Some people get injured when they touch this sword, said the true dragon. I only want to wipe it a bit, so I hope you can help suppress its power, senior, Jiang Hao said with a bow. The true dragon hesitated but eventually nodded. All right. I can suppress the Shenyuan sword's intent within the seal. But if the sword rejects you, there's little I can do about it. Thank you very much, senior. Jiang Hao was delighted. It worked. Chapter 696, Chapter 696. Do you really not want the inheritance? Chapter 696. Do you really not want the inheritance? At the Sun-Moon Peak, Baizhu carefully searched the area but found nothing. She began to doubt whether the Shenyuan sword was actually here. Both Xing and Shenyuan Tai said it's here. They can't both be wrong. So, why can't I find it? Baizhu frowned. If it was just a regular hiding place, she and the Black Heaven sect would have discovered it long ago. Shenyuan Tai would have found it too because he was about to become the Grand Earth Emperor. The fact that Shenyuan Tai hadn't found it meant that the location of the Shenyuan sword was far from simple. Where could it be? Baizhu couldn't sense anything. Time was running out, and she had no other options. She reluctantly took out the stone tablet and entered it. She called for Xing and Liu. After a while, a figure appeared in the public area. It was Xing. "Gui, have you run into any difficulties?" asked Xing with a smile. "The Grand Earth Emperor is about to appear, but there's an issue. To make the Shenyuan sword emerge, I need to set up the Burning Immortal formation," Gui said. "So, what's the problem?" Xing asked in confusion. "The problem is that I can't find the Shenyuan sword," Gui said. "I see." Xing nodded. "It's challenging to find the Shenyuan sword. The fact that the Shenyuan clan couldn't find it for so long means that conventional methods won't work. So, we can use the Burning Immortal formation. Since that requires the core of the Burning Immortal formation, it means that the formation is part of the location. You can use the method of tracing the Burning Immortal formation to determine the exact location." "How will I do that?" Gui asked. "I will find a way to help you locate the pattern of the Burning Immortal formation," Xing said. A little while later, Baizhu once again started her task in the Sun-Moon Peak. With another formation in her palm, she searched for the pattern of the Burning Immortal formation. It eventually showed her that the formation was the mountain's base. It was hidden all this time. It is no wonder we couldn't find it anywhere. As she approached the base, she realized that the magic on it was incomprehensible. "How will I get in now?" Baizhu was cautious and patient. On top of the Sun-Moon Peak, she sensed the flow of great fortune, which meant that the Grand Earth Emperor was about to accept the blessing of the mountain and sea. "I hope I can make it in time." Seeing that the true dragon had agreed, Jiang Hao felt relieved. This was the Shenyuan sword, and it deserved respect. If he wasn't allowed to clean it, he wouldn't dare to approach it. "My apologies," Jiang Hao said and cautiously approached the Shenyuan sword. He gently gripped the hilt of the sword. Then, he exerted a little force. Clang! The sword hummed slightly as he drew it out. "Huh!" The true dragon stood still and wondered if its memory was working right. It forgot that it had just suppressed the power of the sword, and that was why the human could draw it from the floor. Although the Shenyuan sword showed no aura of power, it was still very formidable. This human shouldn't have been able to draw it so easily. The true dragon silently observed Jiang Hao. At that moment, Jiang Hao sat cross-legged and placed the sword on his lap. He then took out a delicate cloth that he often used to clean his primordial heavenly blade. It seemed he knew how to clean the Shenyuan sword. Taking a deep breath, Jiang Hao gently wiped the sword. As he continued to wipe, blue bubbles fell and were absorbed in his body. Jiang Hao smiled and continued to clean. Blue bubbles kept appearing. As he continued wiping it, the rusty sword began to shine. The true dragon watched as the person before him cleaned the sword in joy. As the sword became radiant, the person seemed a bit reluctant. Throughout history, the true dragon had never seen anyone look with such emotions at the Shenyuan sword. As the Shenyuan sword became clean, it vibrated as though it had been reborn from decay. Jiang Hao smiled, but he couldn't help feeling a bit melancholic. He got up and returned the sword to its original position. Now, the Shenyuan sword was gleaming in grandeur. "You really don't plan to take the sword?" asked the true dragon. "Of course not," said Jiang Hao. "I don't think I'm capable. It wasn't a matter of strength or good and evil intentions. It was about ambition." "Is that so? You're the first one to come here and claim to not want anything. You truly don't want anything?" asked the true dragon. Jiang Hao thought for a moment and smiled. "I entered this place accidentally, and I've never thought of taking the sword for myself. I already have what I wanted the most." What about an inheritance? You don't want the human emperor's inheritance, but maybe you could have mine, said the true dragon. Jiang Hao shook his head. I have enough. Even if I get your inheritance, I might not be able to live up to its name. Do you really have no desires? Asked the true dragon in disbelief. I do, but my aspirations lie elsewhere, Jiang Hao said truthfully. I used to dislike humans, and now I dislike them even more. In the past, humans would beg me for my inheritance, but now, they don't want it even when I offer it for free, said the true dragon in disdain. Jiang Hao lowered his head. I'm sorry to disappoint you, senior. He then took 2 steps back. The formation had suddenly lit up. It meant someone was approaching. The Shenyuan sword is about to emerge. What are you going to do, senior? Jiang Hao asked. There wasn't much time left before someone found their way inside. I will enter the Shenyuan sword and sleep. Maybe someone will awaken me again. Perhaps we might meet again then, said the true dragon. I understand. Jiang Hao nodded. The Grand Earth Emperor was Shenyuan Tai, so they would indeed meet again unless Shenyuan Tail's attempt to become the Grand Earth Emperor failed. Do you really not want my inheritance? Asked the true dragon once more. Jiang Hao shook his head. Indeed, I can't help but dislike humans, said the true dragon. It then entered the sword and fell into a deep slumber. Jiang Hao watched for a while and then placed the purple bead on the ground. After hesitating for a moment, he used the 7-star seal to seal it. If the person, who was approaching, was Gui, she would know that this was a temporary seal and could remove it. The bead was contaminated, and Jiang Hao lacked the ability to cleanse it, so he had to leave it to someone else. Gui was highly capable and should be able to handle it. After that, he left. Senior, said Feng Wei respectfully. He had heard everything inside, and he felt a deep respect for Jiang Hao, even more than before. I'm leaving, Jiang Hao said. Feng Wei looked regretful for a moment but quickly regained his composure. There's something I'd like to ask you, senior. Go ahead, Jiang Hao said. I used to be from the Heavenly Note sect. I had a difficult time there and was desperate. At that time, a junior extended a helping hand and gave me the courage to continue. This junior seemed to have good talent and should have successfully built his foundation by now. However, his personality didn't fit in well with the sect. He might have been killed, Feng Wei said. He took out a dagger and cut open a slit in his waist. A bottle of pills covered in various formations appeared. Feng Wei reluctantly took the bottle out and cleaned it before handing it to Jiang Hao. This is the heaven rejuvenating pill that I had saved for myself. Since I have no hope, I want to request you, senior, to make a trip to the Heavenly Note sect on my behalf. If that junior is still alive, please give it to him. If he's dead, you can keep it for yourself, senior. Jiang Hao took the bottle, opened it, and looked inside. It was indeed a heaven rejuvenating pill. Who is that person? Jiang Hao asked. His name is Jiang Hao. He is from the Cliff of Broken Hearts, said Feng Wei. Jiang Hao looked at the pill and sighed. I'll do it. Thank you. Chapter 697. Chapter 697. Is Jing one step ahead of me? Chapter 697. Is Jing one step ahead of me? Jiang Hao looked up at the person in front of him and asked softly, if you could be free, would you return to the Heavenly Note sect? Not for the time being. Feng Wei shook his head. I decided that I needed to be strong enough before going back. I at least want the people who harassed me to see me surpassing them. My ambitions are great, but my life is fragile. Regret was evident in his words. Jiang Hao nodded. Indeed, in the world of cultivation, there were many people with great ambitions, but those who survived were few. Jiang Hao pointed a finger at Feng Wei. In an instant, all the restrictions on him were shattered. Then, he fainted. With Feng Wei in tow, Jiang Hao led him to the formation. As soon as in the blink of an eye, the two of them disappeared from their original spot. When they reappeared, they were back in the previous mine. Jiang Hao walked toward the exit. Not long after, he heard the sounds of a battle. Soon after, a woman staggered in. She seemed to be fleeing. She had been attacked by various spells, and she breathed weakly. Her time was running out. Jiang Hao looked at her and felt that she was very familiar. She was one of the miners from before. "I remember you. You are the one who called me the light of righteousness," he said. The woman looked up and saw Jiang Hao. She froze, and then she sat against the wall. "So, you're here," she said with a bitter smile. "What happened?" Jiang Hao asked as he approached. "We need to escape," the woman said. "Why didn't you run before?" Jiang Hao asked. The woman looked at Jiang Hao. "Because we didn't know there were good people left in this world. You made us feel different, so we wanted to help." "Is that it?" Jiang Hao asked. "Yes." The woman leaned back. "But we failed. Sometimes, I feel like, if you were truly our leader, I feel I could have worked here for a lifetime." "I'm sorry," Jiang Hao said. "Do you think it's because of your arrival that we're in this situation?" asked the woman with emotion. "Don't worry about it. We may seem pitiful, but we are wicked. At least, we used to be. We deserve to die 1,000 deaths. It's just," Jiang Hao didn't interrupt her. He listened attentively. "It's just that I'm a woman, after all, and sometimes I think that if a man were by my side to protect me from the wind and the rain when I was in despair, maybe I wouldn't have become a despicable woman deserving of 1,000 deaths." The woman looked at Jiang Hao. "Or if I had met you earlier, I might have done better." Jiang Hao looked at the woman but didn't say anything. By the time she finished speaking, her breath had weakened. She fell silent. Jiang Hao looked at her and then took her away with him. It's hard to say how long it took. Feng Wei woke up from his slumber. When he opened his eyes, he felt that the sunlight was blinding. He shielded his eyes with his hand. After a while, his eyes adapted to the light. He looked around and saw that he was on a mountain peak. It was surrounded by nothing but wilderness. "Where is this place?" Feng Wei was puzzled. At that moment, he noticed something in his other hand. He saw the heaven rejuvenating pill. "My pill." Feng Wei was shocked and immediately started looking for Jiang Hao, but there was no sign of him. "I'm out." He found it hard to believe. However, all signs indicated that he was free. It seemed unbelievable, but deep down, he had hoped for it. Feng Wei sighed. He still didn't know who that person was. That person must be a formidable senior from some sect who only wanted to see the Shenyuan sword. After hesitating for a while, he decided to go near the Black Heaven sect. The Shenyuan sword was about to appear, and he wanted to see it. Gui spent more than a day and finally found the entrance. She wiped the sweat from her forehead and took a deep breath. "I'm so tired. I've worked so hard for Qiao Yi's cultivation technique." Qiao Yi was not a member of the Heavenly Spirit tribe, but she had a natural affinity with them. She could practice their techniques. So, Gui found the best technique to accelerate Qiao Yi's cultivation speed. With her resources, Qiao Yi's advancement would be extremely fast. Boom! When the stone wall was finally broken through, a fiery light burst forth. She had expected it to be hot and sudden, but it was unexpectedly soothing. Considering that it had been sealed for so many years, it should have been scorching. It truly is where the Shenyuan sword is. This is extraordinary. Baizhu couldn't help but exclaim, then she took a step inside. As soon as she entered, she saw the bright sword at the center. Its aura was restrained, but it shone with a grandeur. The Shenyuan sword. Seeing the divine artifact up close was strange. In an instant, she snapped back to reality. Now was not the time to admire the sword. She needed to set up the core of the burning immortal formation. She had a doubt the Shenyuan sword might have been contaminated. But it didn't seem to be. Soon, she reached the edge of the formation. When she glanced at it, she frowned in confusion. What's going on? Is the formation complete? Could it be that there's very little left to be replenished? She looked around. The more she looked, the more alarmed she became. She found that not only had the formation been completed, but its power had also been fully restored. The burning immortal formation could be activated at any time. Did someone get here ahead of me? Maybe Shen Yuan Tai. That's impossible. Then, who else could it be from the Black Heaven sect? Bai Zhu approached the central platform doubtfully to see if there were any other changes. When she got there, she was stunned. 7-star seal? The 7-star seal was a seal Senior Dan Yuan had taught them. Only 5 people from the gathering knew about it. They were Senior Dan Yuan, Xing, Liu, Jing, and herself. It's certainly not Senior Dan Yuan. Xing is in the eastern region. Liu is overseas, so. Bai Zhu unlocked the 7-star seal and found a purple-colored bead inside. It had black mist trapped inside, which she guessed was the mist that had tainted the sword. It's Jing. Bai Zhu was moved. She had come all this way, while Jing had silently taken care of everything. Why did he leave behind this mist for her? Is he planning to exchange it with me for something else? After collecting the item, she carefully inspected the burning immortal formation and was shocked to discover that the things required to give the formation sufficient power were exceptionally unique. She wouldn't have time to find them and complete the formation. It is no wonder Jing seemed so busy. He was either dealing with monsters or divine artifacts. It would be strange if he wasn't constantly busy. After making sure everything was in order, Bai Zhu approached the Shen Yuan sword. I wonder what it feels like to touch such a divine artifact. She was naturally curious about the human emperor's sword. Even though she couldn't possess it, could she at least touch it? Forgive me, but I have a small wish. I just want to touch it. Chapter 698, Chapter 698, Shongan's Intervention. Chapter 698, Shongan's Intervention. Bai Zhu stood before the Shen Yuan sword and saw that the sword did not refuse her approach. She cautiously moved closer. Due to the sword's formidable reputation, she was very cautious. Just a touch should be fine, right? Bai Zhu reassured herself. With such a divine artifact before her, it would be a shame not to have at least touched it. Taking a deep breath, Bai Zhu crossed the distance and touched the sword's hilt. Instantly, the sword vibrated. A surge of sword intent poured out like a tidal wave. Boom! Bai Zhu was startled. She tried to let go, but it was already too late. Boom! The sword's intent broke free and hit her. It sent her flying backward. Then, the sword's intent gathered into a majestic figure before Bai Zhu's astonished eyes. At that moment, the figure turned to look at her. A single glance from this figure felt like everything pressed down on her. Bai Zhu was awestruck. She felt insignificant. Bai Zhu was flung back, and she crashed into the wall. She didn't hesitate. Senior, please spare me. The pressure instantly disappeared. When she looked up again, there was nothing in front of her but the Shen Yuan sword. Everything that had just happened felt like an illusion. Bai Zhu was scared and remained seated where she was. It truly is the human emperor's sword. Her cultivation realm was already quite high, but in front of the human emperor, she was like a child. If someone had approached the sword with evil intentions, they would have been killed by the Shen Yuan sword just now. She was curious whether Jing had touched the human emperor's sword. He probably was curious too. I can ask him the next time we meet. She was also curious about how he had arrived here. After exploring the area, she found that there were mineral veins outside. She also discovered the formation. After a brief examination of the place, she was shocked to find that Jing had been here for a very, very long time. As for the formation, she just took one look and knew it was a teleportation formation. She had no intention of using it to go somewhere else. Meeting Jing unexpectedly would not be safe. She left by following the same path she had come from. The Shen Yuan sword's emergence was proceeding smoothly, and now they were waiting for the arrival of the Grand Earth Emperor, who would resonate with the Shen Yuan sword. That would be the best time for the Shen Yuan sword to emerge. I wonder if senior brother Shen Yuan Tai is making progress. When Bai Zhu left, the true dragon emerged from the Shen Yuan sword. It glanced at the sword and then said, I thought you were broken when that person pulled you out so casually earlier. It seems that you're not. That means that person was exceptional. I can't see what makes him so special, though. Is it temperament? Personality? Talent? This question had no answer, as nobody could provide it. The inheritor of the Shenyuan sword embodied the will of the human emperor. Their ability to wield the sword signified the human emperor's approval. At the Black Heaven sect, the forces of the mountain and sea converged in the sky. In the midst of this great force, Shenyuan Tail's figure seemed like a lone boat adrift. At that point, he could only stabilize the great force, but he couldn't integrate it into his body. Even with strong individuals assisting him, it wasn't as easy as he had thought to achieve success. At that time, various sects were making preparations. Outside the sect, there were signs of the fallen immortal clan, the Saint Bandits, the end of all things, and even a spiritual aura. It was the Great Thousand God sect. These people hadn't made a move, but their pressure was attempting to subvert the great force of the mountain and sea. Inside the Black Heaven sect, members of the Mountain Sea Sword sect stood together. They assisted, but the effect was not as great as they had hoped. There were only a few people who had come to contribute, and they couldn't form a complete spiritual aura. The Black Heaven sect is still too weak. If it were one of the major sects in the southern region, it would be much easier to deal with. Zhuge Jin sighed. These forces have no intention of making a move, they just want to gain some benefit from the success or failure of this event. But even so, the Black Heaven sect is unable to suppress them. We can only rely on Shenyuan Tai. If it were someone else, they would have already failed by now, Zhuge Jin said. This person is indeed extraordinary. Do you think he will fail? Fu Dongxue asked. It's hard to say. This is not a test of strength but a contest of the surrounding spiritual aura. It is to see how many people support him, Zhuge Jin said. In any case, it seems the situation doesn't look good for the Grand Earth Emperor, Zhuge Jin said solemnly. At the same time, members of the fallen immortal clan stood outside and absorbed the spiritual aura. They had sensed something and found a similar aura underground. They could only absorb a tiny amount at a time. It seems that our clan has learned something about this place, someone said. We mustn't make a mistake now. For now, let's focus on absorbing what we can. By the way, what about the three who left? Asked the man in the lead. One of them rescued Mi Qian, and the other two went to find Jiang Hao's junior sister. There should be good news soon, said a woman. Very well. Let them act on their own. There's no need for us to contact them too much, said the man in the lead. As the group was still planning to absorb the ancestral aura, they suddenly felt another presence. This aura was bright, like a beam of light shining upon them. It affected their progress. Shortly after, the light shone on the Black Heaven sect and helped to stabilize the great force of the mountain and sea. Who is that? They looked into the distance and saw a figure approaching. This figure was radiating a bright light. It was difficult to make out their appearance. It's the Sage's light, said the man in the lead. Shongen from the Clear Sky School. How did he end up in the southern region? Shongen was incredibly powerful, but for the immortal sects, he was a saintly person who hadn't fully matured yet. It was surprising that he was allowed to go outside. Don't confront him. There may be people from Clear Sky School around, or he might be carrying a valuable treasure. Understood. As the saint's light got closer, the spiritual auras in the vicinity avoided its sharpness. The reputation of the Clear Sky School sages had spread far and wide throughout the 4 regions. No one was willing to oppose them at this time. Zhuge Jin also sensed the arrival of that light and found it somewhat unbelievable. I've only heard of this person, and now, I see that his reputation is well deserved. That beam of light acted like a giant hand that protected the great force of the mountain and sea. It made things easier for Shenyuan Tai. Who is that person? Zhuge Zhang asked curiously. The recent prodigy that the Clear Sky School recruited. His arrival likely represents Clear Sky School. That's why no one dares to confront him. This also gives Shenyuan Tai a better chance. However, he alone is enough to exude such a strong aura. He should be able to ascend to the Immortal Ascension platform at any time. Furthermore, he must have a valuable treasure with him, Zhuge Jin said. So, does that mean the Grand Earth Emperor will be able to appear finally? Fu Dongxue asked. Zhuge Jin looked up and whispered, the great force of the mountain and sea has stabilized, but absorbing it is still extremely difficult. There aren't enough people who can do it without the Dragon Clan. We'll have to see what the Black Heavens sect has prepared. The people of the Black Heavens sect were overjoyed. The appearance of that light gave them confidence. At that moment, an elderly man took out a dragon pearl. This was something any Narakmria at an umagmame cost Anna Drount Dakram overseas. Senior, it's up to you now. I'm just a shadow using the dragon pearl. It's not certain whether this will succeed. It's a pity that my true self can't leave Chaos Stone Island. Otherwise, I could contribute much more. Senior, don't worry about it. Just do your best, and let fate decide the rest. Chapter 699. Chapter 699. The true body of the true dragon is needed. Chapter 699. The true body of the true dragon is needed. Outside the Black Heavens sect, Feng Wei watched from afar. He dared not get too close because there were too many different auras around, and he feared for his life. However, a scene like this was something that happened once in a lifetime. Although he had reached the Foundation establishment realm, he was ultimately an insignificant figure in the entire cultivation world. He toiled day by day for a meager amount of spirit stones. Dissatisfaction burned within him. He was unwilling to fade away. However, wanting to become stronger based solely on momentum was useless. He needed to put in the effort, and with his shallow foundation, he was walking on thin ice. One misstep and he would meet his end with no one left to even collect his corpse. "There's someone here," said a voice behind him. Feng Wei was startled. He hadn't noticed anyone approaching. He wondered if he should flee. In the blink of an eye, a figure appeared before him. It was a young man who looked playful. "Your clothes seem a bit tattered," he said with a smile. "Greeting, senior," said Feng Wei in fear. "Oh, don't be like that. I'm just passing by and was curious about you, so I asked. I don't know what you've done or plan to do, but I don't intend to pry," the man said. "Senior, you're too carefree. That's why we've been searching for junior brother Shong An and senior brother Liu Yun for so long," said a graceful woman in annoyance. "Yes. You said he would help us find them. It seems you just led us here aimlessly," said another young man. "Shong An is here, isn't he? Besides, do you really have to call him junior brother? Who among you is stronger than he?" said the man in front of Feng Wei lazily. "I am Xie Dongnan from the Clear Sky School." "What's your name?" Xie Dongnan looked at the person in front of him. I'm Feng Wei from the Heavenly Note sect," Feng Wei said with a bow. The Clear Sky School was the strongest immortal sect. How could someone from there appear here? "We came here because we saw senior brother Shong'an's light," said a young woman. The four of them had secretly left their sect to come and see Shong'an. Since they couldn't see him within the sect, they had come out to take a look. Now that they saw the sage's light, they were deeply moved. Truly, it was clear that the disciple recruited by the elders from across the two regions had extraordinary talent. Countless elders wept in secret for not getting to recruit him first. "We can't approach now, so we can only watch from here. But for the Grand Earth Emperor, we still need to contribute. If we don't see him, it's fine. But if we do and refuse to contribute, that would be unacceptable," Xie Dongnan said. "How can we help?" someone asked. "Bring out your treasures, and I'll do it." Xie Dongnan was excited. "There's even the aura of the Mountain Sea Sword sect here. How pathetic that an immortal sect like us has to remain hidden here. If they see the grandeur of the most powerful immortal sect, they'll grind their teeth in fear. Aren't you usually very carefree? Why do you suddenly want to compete, senior?" said a white-robed woman. "Carefree? Senior brother is very competitive," said the other young man. "He actually is." The young woman nodded. Feng Wei watched them as they summoned their magical treasures, and then, the one in front of him emitted an overwhelming aura. This immense aura echoed and protected the great force of the mountain and sea. The sudden involvement of Clear Sky School left the Black Heavens sect overjoyed. The members of the Mountain Sea Sword sect were also astonished. The Clear Sky School's disciples had come to join in the fun as well. Other forces had no choice but to withdraw once more. It seemed that no one wanted to fight at this moment. They just wanted the benefits. At that moment, an elderly person in the Black Heavens sect looked at the dragon pearl he was holding. "Senior, it's up to you now." "Very well," said the true dragon. Then a phantom soared into the sky. The might of a true dragon helped Shenyuan Tai to accommodate the great force. A dragon's roar shook the heavens. At last, the great force of the mountain and sea began to be absorbed. Everyone looked up at the sky and awaited the final result. Beneath them, Yang Shong felt quite emotional. The Grand Earth Emperor is truly formidable. "Senior sister, you aren't bad either. If it weren't for the Shenyuan bloodline's advantage, they wouldn't be as good as you," said a young woman next to Yang Shong. Yang Shong chuckled. "Don't make wild claims. That person is still young. When he reaches my age, he might become stronger than me. In my view, you are the strongest," said the young woman. "You have sparred with so many powerful people and defeated each one." "I wonder if he will succeed," said Yang Shong. "I feel like many powerful individuals are watching from outside." "I wonder if they will take action," said the young woman. "They won't. These people all have their own purpose, and whether the Grand Earth Emperor succeeds or not doesn't affect them," Yang Shong said. "The Grand Earth Emperor indeed has a great reputation, but you aren't bad either. Many people recognize and respect your talent, senior sister." Yang Shong smiled. At that moment, the great force of the mountain and sea was shrinking. Fu Dongxue was surprised. "That is a true dragon. Although it's not the main body, will it still be enough?" "It's hard to say. We have to see what happens next," Zhuge Jin said. Everything was proceeding smoothly, especially after the Clear Sky School's involvement. It made people wary. "I feel like the Clear Sky School has surpassed us," Zhuge Jin said. In an instant, people around him all looked over in resentment. Zhuge Jin was speechless. For his sect, they didn't want to compete with others. However, when it came to the Clear Sky School, the Bright Moon sect, and the Astronomical Academy, competition was unavoidable. Baizhu walked out of the Sun-Moon Peak. She walked to Qiao Yi. "How is it going?" "I think it's going well." Qiao Yi briefed her on everything that had happened. "Sage's light. Shong'en from the Clear Sky School is here?" "He really is in the southern region," Baizhu said. "Shong'en." Qiao Yi didn't recognize the name. "Do you remember why I only called myself the #1 genius of the royal family, instead of an unrivaled genius?" Baizhu asked. "Because there was an unrivaled genius who achieved the Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment." Qiao Yi said in confusion. "Yes. That is one of the unrivaled geniuses. The other one is that person right there. Shong'en, the extraordinary genius," said Baizhu. Initially, she didn't know how powerful Shong'en was. Now, it seemed unbelievable. Even if they stood in the same realm, the difference was extraordinary. It's incredible that a true dragon is helping out, but Baizhu looked at the great force of the mountain and sea. She felt that this was somewhat different from when Chu Jie had been there. It seemed to be less smooth. Even with Chu Jie here, there would be problems. The Grand Earth Emperor would face some issues anyway. Not long after, the phantom of the true dragon began to falter. The great force of the mountain and sea became heavy as if it could suppress everything. "No. The true body needs to be here," said the true dragon. The message resonated everywhere. Everyone's faces turned pale. Shenyuan Tai, at this moment, was in even worse shape. If not for his strong willpower, he wouldn't have been able to endure it this long. "What should we do?" an elder from the Black Heavens sect asked. It seemed like nothing could solve the problem. They could only stall for time. At the same time, Xiao Li followed a scent to the outside of the Black Heaven sect. She had lost the gift she bought for her senior brother and had run away on her own. "Where is it?" Xiao Li pouted and looked around. "Are you looking for this?" Two people walked out of the woods. They surrounded Xiao Li. One of them held a box of pastries. "Thief!" Xiao Li was infuriated. She had thought her gift had grown legs and ran away on its own, but it turned out that it had been stolen. How infuriating. Chapter 700. Chapter 700. Is Jing here to help? Chapter 700. Is Jing here to help? Xiao Li looked at the two people in front of her. It was a middle-aged man and a relatively young woman. They both looked not very pleasing to the eye. That's a gift for my senior brother, Xiao Li said. So, the middle-aged man asked with a smile. Give it back. Xiao Li reached out her hand. You can have it back if you come with us, said the middle-aged man. You want me to listen to thieves like you? Xiao Li glared at them. Give it back to me. If not, I'm going to get angry. Boom. The woman flicked her finger and turned the pastries into powder. Don't waste your time with her, she said. Xiao Li stomped her foot in anger. Those were my pastries. I'm furious now. Angry? What use is it for you to get angry here? The woman stepped closer to Xiao Li. You are just at the Foundation establishment realm. Soon, you'll realize how small you really are. The woman approached Xiao Li. She was ready to use her power to suppress her and take her away. However, as she got closer, a blue light suddenly flashed. Boom. A barrier of light blocked her hand. That surprised her. In an instant, a fist struck her in the face. She was sent flying. She rolled several times on the ground and stood up. She hadn't expected to be humiliated like this. You're looking for trouble. She charged again. This time, her aura erupted in a powerful force. This little girl had to pay for her humiliation. You thief. You want to fight me? Xiao Li swung her fist without any reservation. The dragon pearl on her neck kept releasing blue energy which covered her entire body. The attacks from the woman barely made an impact as they were all neutralized by the blue light. Boom. Xiao Li sent the woman flying again with a punch. This girl is strange. Let's team up, said the middle-aged man. I'll kill you. The woman was furious. She was at the peak of the primordial spirit realm but had been punched twice by this little girl who was only in the Foundation establishment realm. Don't you move. Before the middle-aged man could say anything, he was sent flying. I'll beat you both up, Xiao Li said furiously. The middle-aged man was also furious. How could a Foundation establishment realm kid be so strong? A few rounds later, they found themselves beaten up. Xiao Li had suffered no injuries at all. Don't hold back. Suppress her with full force even if she dies, said the middle-aged man. They couldn't delay. Soon, both of them unleashed all their power and even used their magical treasures. This time, they didn't hold back. They intended to overwhelm Xiao Li. The power was incredibly intense, and Xiao Li instinctively shielded her eyes. Here's our chance. The two leaped from the sky and descended with overwhelming force. It seemed like their power could crush everything below. At that moment, the dragon pearl emitted an unprecedented blue light that Snoo up Hilo Lyle Sky. A dragon roar echoed. The giant dragon's shadow pierced the heavens and stirred the winds and clouds. Under the shadow of the dragon, the two formidable opponents turned to ashes. They never dreamed that they would die without even knowing how. Inside the Black Heaven sect, Zhuge Jin frowned. It seems we can't do it. The dragon phantom W in the sky had exhausted its strength, and Shen Yuan Tai was struggling. What if we endure it a bit longer? Fu Dongxue asked. I don't know. I've never seen this before. It's too hard to succeed. Zhuge Jin sighed. Is there a true dragon anywhere? There's a phantom here, which means that the Black Heaven sect is already very impressive, Zhuge Jin said. The others didn't argue. Indeed, that was the case. Even for their own sect, it might not be easy to find a phantom of a dragon, let alone a true dragon. There were no true dragons in the world today. Even if there were, it was a well-kept secret. They could only find some traces of dragons in certain ruins. Although the Grand Earth Emperor has appeared, it's a pity it's not easy to complete the process. Fu Dongxue sighed. Outside, Xie Dongnan also felt helpless. It all depended on luck now. If luck wasn't on their side, it would be too difficult for the Grand Earth Emperor to appear. Even if luck was on their side, success wasn't guaranteed. They had come here unexpectedly and had tried their best. Princess, Is this going to fail? Qiao Yi asked. Not yet. There should still be something, Baizhu said. What? Qiao Yi asked in confusion. A person, Baizhu said. What kind of person? Someone who made a move during the attainment of the heavenly Tao. Foundation establishment. He might help the Grand Earth Emperor as well. Is this person very strong? At the very least, I haven't found him to be weak. When will he take action? I don't know, but if a blue or purple energy appears, it'll be him. Purple or blue? But there's no sign of. Before Qiao Yi finished her sentence, a blue beam of light suddenly shot up into the sky. This sudden change caught everyone's attention. The dragon's roar shook everything, and a giant dragon's figure soared into the sky. It shook the heavens and earth. The dragon's might covered all directions. In an instant, it crushed and shattered all surrounding auras. The true dragon phantom halted in the sky. With a single glance, it stabilized the great force of the mountain and sea, and Shenyuan Tai's process of assimilating the force became smooth and swift. The earlier true dragon's phantom lowered its head in awe. This sudden appearance of the dragon shocked not only the Black Heaven sect but also the various other major powers in the vicinity. Smiling San Sheng? The people from the Great Thousand God sect immediately thought of that name. In a split second, everyone from the Great Thousand God sect began to retreat. Baizhu was stunned. It's a true dragon. She initially thought it might be purple energy, but now, it seemed that everything was under Jing's control. The thing had been lured out by the rise of the Shenyuan clan, and it was here to repay the favor. How far can he see? Baizhu wondered. Qiao Yi was astounded. It's really happening. It's blue. The princess knew far more than she had expected. At the same time, in the woods, Xiao Li opened her eyes, and the beam of light disappeared. The true dragon's phantom also vanished without a trace. Where are they? Xiao Li looked around but found no one. She stomped her foot in frustration. Darn it, they stole my stuff and ran away. Who stole what from you again? A clear and melodious voice sounded from behind her. Xiao Li was startled. She turned around to see a figure in a red and white dress standing behind her. Sister-in-law. Xiao Li ran toward her in joy. Why are you here? Where's my senior brother? Hong Yuye was here. Chapter 701, Chapter 701. All that belongs to senior brother belongs to senior sister too. Chapter 701. All that belongs to senior brother belongs to senior sister too. Where's my senior brother? Xiao Li held onto Hong Yuye's arm and looked around. Hong Yuye watched Xiao Li but didn't stop her from holding onto her hand. Your senior brother isn't here. Huh? Senior brother is so irresponsible. He doesn't accompany you when you go out. Hong Yuye looked at the girl in front of her, then lifted the dragon pearl around her neck to examine it. However, the dragon pearl showed some reluctance. Is this yours? Hong Yuye asked. This is senior brother's, Xiao Li said. Whatever is his is also yours. So, this can be yours too, senior sister. Hong Yuye raised an eyebrow and looked at Xiao Li. Then, she smiled. You're different from your senior brother. Huh? Xiao Li was puzzled. How so? Hong Yuye didn't answer her. 9 out of 10 things Jiang Hao told were lies, while Xiao Li was different. Every word she said was said with sincerity. What did you say was stolen? Hong Yuye let go of the dragon pearl and asked. I bought a gift for my senior brother, but it was stolen, and the thieves ran away, Xiao Li said in annoyance. Is that so? Hong Yuve raised her head and looked at the ashes on the ground. At that moment, a loud rumbling sounded from the sky. A figure stood there like an unshakable mountain. Wow, so tall. Who is it? Xiao Li asked curiously. He's the Grand Earth Emperor, Hong Yuye said. The spirit beast said that if anyone takes its name, even the Grand Earth Emperor will be good to them, said Xiao Li in awe. Hong Yuye smiled. Then, she took Xiao Li and left. Greeting, senior. I'm Xian Xin from the Black Heaven sect. Welcome, said a voice respectfully from afar. Hong Yuye didn't pay any attention to it and continued leading Xiao Li into the sect. On the way, Xiao Li talked with her happily. Senior sister, I've prepared a gift for you too. Really? What is it? Delicious pastries. It's especially delicious. Especially delicious? Yes, you should taste them. Here, take one. Give them to your senior brother. Senior sister, you are too good to him. At the same time, someone from a distance requested an audience, but none of them received a response. No one dared to approach recklessly. The imposing aura was enough to intimidate everyone. In the sky, Shen Yuantai had completely absorbed the great force, and he now had a completely new outlook. He could even sense the presence of the Shen Yuan sword under his feet and could resonate with it at any moment. Looks like junior sister Baizhu succeeded, after all, he said. Shen Yuantai calmed his breath and began communicating and resonating with the Shen Yuan sword. Many people were puzzled, and some of the Black Heaven sect's elders couldn't understand why he didn't come down despite his success. Remaining in the sky was very dangerous as it made him an easy target. To some, Shen Yuantai was still just a Soul Ascension realm cultivator. In the eyes of many, he still seemed weak. Zhuge Jin and the others understood the reason. It seems that the Shen Yuan sword is about to emerge. It will be interesting to see how profound the sword's intent is. In fact, the members of the Mountain Sea Sword sect were somewhat reluctant. They weren't disapproving of the human emperor but rather the sword's intent itself. This was because there was a record in their sect that said the sword of the human emperor could break through the 9 heavens, suppress the earth, and overturn the world with a single strike. The sword was the ultimate weapon. Various records showed that the human emperor was never a sword cultivator. As sword cultivators themselves, they didn't want to be suppressed by someone who wasn't a sword cultivator at all. Not everyone had come here for that reason. Some came to witness the sword intent of the great sword of the human emperor. Regardless of the reason, they would now achieve their goals. In the distance, Baizhu was prepared and started to imprint the sword's intent of the Shen Yuan sword. Qiao Yi helped her. Auntie Qiao, this matter concerns your future. You must be careful, Baizhu said to her. What? Qiao Yi was puzzled. Baizhu didn't say anything more but simply advised her to stay focused. Outside the Black Heaven sect, the fallen immortal clan also felt it. The aura was obvious, and they had gained quite a bit from it. However, they could sense that everything in the world was now vying for this energy. As for the Great Thousand God sect, they retreated. They had no reason to stay now that the event had passed. As for the Clear Sky School, they were also not taking action but were just watching the sky. Xie Dongnan was puzzled. What's going on? If you don't know, senior brother, how could we? Said the white-robed woman as she took back her magical treasure. They were actually quite curious about the dragon's shadow just now but didn't dare approach recklessly. After some thought, Feng Wei said, it might be the Shen Yuan sword. The Shen Yuan sword? Xie Dongnan was astonished. How much do you know about it, friend? The Shen Yuan sword is right beneath the Black Heaven sect, and it was suppressing something. It can't appear easily, Feng Wei said. What is the Great Earth Emperor waiting for? Asked the young woman. Because there is a formation near the Shen Yuan sword, which most likely can destroy the suppressed entity, Feng Wei said. As soon as he finished speaking, a faint light appeared beneath Shen Yuantai. The light extended from the mountain to the sky and revealed a formation in the air. That is indeed a formation. Xie Dongnan frowned slightly. What kind of formation is that? Why haven't I seen it before? Several people looked at Feng Wei. Feng Wei felt lucky that he had asked the senior from before. It's called the Burning Immortal Formation. Burning Immortal Formation, exclaimed the young woman. I know that formation. It was created by the human race. Well, it's said that the one who created this formation was an extremely talented formation master from the Heavenly Spirit tribe. He joined the human race where the human emperor appeared and devoted himself to studying formations. Eventually, he completed the Burning Immortal Formation during the war between humans and immortals, and it brought devastation to all sides. This is the first time I've seen this formation. How do you know about it? Smack. Xie Dongnan gave the young woman's head a soft smack. These are adult matters. Don't ask too many questions, child. The younger woman glared at her senior brother but remained silent. The older one turned to Feng Wei. Do you know what the Shenyuan sword looks like? It's radiant and gleaming, with a golden luster, Feng Wei said without hesitation. The group exchanged glances. They found it unbelievable. According to the records, no one had seen the true form of the Shenyuan sword in countless years. This person not only knew about the burning immortal formation but also knew that the sword was located beneath the Black Heaven sect. He even knew what the sword looked like. It meant that this person had seen the sword already. We're planning to travel to the southern region. Would you like to guide us? Of course, when we return, we can take you with us. We can take you to the Clear Sky School. We, as disciples, cannot recruit you, but we can take you to learn from the seniors. The sect approves that. If you have extraordinary talent and a good temperament, there's a chance you might become an outer sect disciple. Feng Wei was astounded. At that moment, he understood what it meant to encounter a noble person. His life had changed since meeting that senior. It was only possible for him to accept this opportunity because of that person. If he went along with them and even just traveled with them, that would be an incredible opportunity in itself. He was filled with gratitude. He now realized what a stroke of luck he had encountered. In a time of despair within the sect, someone had extended a helping hand to him. When hope seemed lost in the mine, someone appeared and pulled him out. Thank you, Senior. I will do my best to be an efficient guide, he said gratefully. Now that his path had become smoother, he had to give it his all. Chapter 702. Chapter 702. The white blade was tainted red as it came out of the back. Chapter 702. The white blade was tainted red as it came out of the back. Shenyuan Tai slowly opened his eyes. At that moment, he had a smile on his face. Some people had come because of his identity as the Grand Earth Emperor, while others came for the Shenyuan sword. In principle, they shouldn't have brought out the sword at this time to keep it safe. But, as the Grand Earth Emperor, how could he just hide? Once one became a sovereign, they had to stand tall and proud. Even if he died, he couldn't bow down to anyone. With determination in his heart, he reached out his right hand and grabbed something. His voice echoed in all directions. Senior, thank you for your patience. The world will cheer for your arrival. Come. As Shenyuan Tai's palm closed, a golden light shot into the sky. Countless swords intent shattered through layers of rock and illuminated the 8 directions. It caused a commotion throughout the world. The golden sword intent reached 9 heavens and suppressed the mountains and seas. Numerous treasures shook, and spiritual energy was difficult to circulate. The entire Black Heaven sect was covered by this golden sword's intent. At that moment, both the disciples and elders of the sect finally realized that the human emperor's sword was about to appear. With the emergence of the sword's intent, the burning immortal formation erupted. Numerous auras appeared, but none could surpass the sword's intent. People from the Mountain Sea Sword sect were deeply shocked by the ancient and vast sword intent. It made them feel small. Other powerful individuals felt the same way. The sage's light dimmed. Everything in the world withdrew to avoid the sharpness of the sword's intent. The saint bandits sighed warily and turned to leave. The human emperor's sword had slaughtered numerous immortal beings. Baizhu was excited. It's here. It's here. Finally, it's complete. Amidst the shock of countless people, the entire mountain peak shattered, and a golden sword emerged from it. The sword flew toward Shenyuan Tai and finally landed in his hand. Shenyuan Tai smiled as he gripped the sword. He was finally about to begin the sword's test. At that moment, the sword's intent exploded and illuminated the heavens and earth. Everyone lowered their heads. They were unable to look directly at it. Baizhu's magical treasure lit up and successfully imprinted the sword's intent. She also noticed that the sword's intent enveloped Shenyuan Tai. He was surrounded by layers upon layers of rocks. Until he completed the test, he would remain there. Baizhu shook her head. She had touched it just a bit and got injured, But someone was about to start the test holding that very same sword. She felt that it was too discriminatory. "It's indeed shining with golden light," said Xiedongnan in emotion. "Senior brother, something big is happening," said the white-robed young woman. "What's going on?" "Shongan is missing." On the other side, the fallen immortal clan, who had gathered enough aura, decided to leave. "What about Jiang Hao?" the leader asked. "I don't know. We have lost contact with those two. It's likely that things have taken a turn for the worse. Let's not worry about it for now. Let's head back." "All right." At the Heavenly Note sect, in the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Jiang Hao returned to his house. He immediately checked his interface. "I've advanced so quickly." After mining so much, he was still far from full. But after polishing the Shenyuan sword, he was almost there. Jiang Hao fell into deep thought. After that, he took out the heavenly sword.